Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the show. Happy to have you here, and I am back from my sabbatical. But I need a sabbatical for my sabbatical. Yeah.
That's not the
Uh,
problem to have. That's not the
yeah.
problem.
I'm so tired because up in you get lazy over here in the countryside, right? In a certain
Yep.
way. But in the cities, you're walking all day long, right? You're walking,
Yes.
walking, walking, and standing, walking, and oh, my legs are so sore, dude. 2 weeks in two different cities, right? My goodness. But anyway, I am back. It's a new year, and that should be a good thing. I did go to Fukuoka for a week, and then I went over to Nagasaki for a week. Not my choice, but the wife is in charge ultimately. Don't let any married man tell you otherwise. And you can go
She's
tell
in
all
charge.
those.
Here's how I put it. She's
Yeah.
in charge of the day to day. I'm in charge of the future.
Well,
That's how
anything
I
that
look
goes
at it.
wrong, it's your
Yeah.
responsibility.
Well,
That's
yeah,
it.
exactly. You're the future proof because something
That's
went
right.
wrong, so you got to fix it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. It always works out like that. But you should go tell those wokeites that. Yeah. They're not
No,
paying
they don't
much
listen.
attention because
They don't listen.
women have all the monies and they have all the powers. We're just schmucks. Well,
Most of
uh,
us are anyway. We don't have enough money or power to not be.
yeah, that's the
And
problem.
the way we've structured society is the middle and the bottom is very favored to the female, to the mom,
Oh,
because we
sure.
need moms.
Well, we do. That's true. That is true. That is true. But You know, the good thing about it, Fukuoka is the best food city. It's the best city in Japan, really. And that was fine for having some good meals because I can't do much else, right? I can't shop here, for clothing and stuff because nothing fits me. They're all a bunch of freaking Lilliputians. I should have went with the Wizard of Oz ones. What are they called? Munchkins? Munchkins. Yeah, I should have went with
Munchkins.
Munchkins. But whatever, they're little. So I can't do any of that. I'm not interested in other stuff. Although I do have a fascination with Japanese ceramics, though bowls and
Oh,
plates and things. Uh,
oh, Chester. I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, but I've always wanted to. My wife and I, there's a store over here,
mhm.
and it's one of these like department store type things, but it often has very weird things that you can't get anywhere else. Right? You can't go to Walmart and get them or whatever.
Yeah.
And they had in there a whole bunch. I bought them of actual made in Japan bowls.
Hmm.
They are by far the best bowls I've ever owned.
Oh, they're great.
They're easy to clean. They don't break unless you really drop them hard, and they're smooth. And it's amazing. I've never experienced anything like it. And I was going to ask you, I was going to take a picture of one and be like, hey, can you read what this manufacturer is so I
I'm
know so I can
I
find one of these bowls?
I most certainly could. Although it's probably ancient Japanese, but that's okay. I can work it out. Because
Hmm.
those kind of companies tend to use the old language, right? Ye
Right.
old pottery. But yeah, no, they are great. I would say the reason I like them is because they have a lot of character. They tend to.
Mm.
You're talking about a specific type. The stuff I love is like it's very hand wrought. It's kind of rough. It has
Hmm.
character. I would say for smoothness, if you want, just kind of a smooth, plate or pot or excuse me, or bowl that you can put in the microwave, put in the oven, or do whatever you want with, the
Hmm.
Scandinavians kick ass, actually.
They make good. They make good china, dude.
Yeah, they are pretty badass. But
It's
you know,
pretty sad that China doesn't make the best china.
well, they
I mean,
never did.
it's literally I know it's literally named after them.
Well, would you like a little history lesson on why that
Uh-oh.
is?
I've done it. I've
You
walked
did.
right into it,
You
everybody.
did. But no, because in the 17th century, Japan was going through it took about say 50 years of just shutting down from in as
Mm,
far as its involvement in the outside world, and it was all about control. The Tokugawa family would just wanted complete control, right? And they
mhm,
shut Japan down, and of course, for a few hundred years they were shut down, and they suffered for it, right? But and that's what led to World War II. I won't get into all of that. But one of the things that people were baying over at that time, late 1500s, early 1600s, right, was Japanese ceramics, right? And
Mm,
the Japanese ceramics did two things. One, the Europeans were just crazy for them, right? But
mhm,
two, the Japanese would take, because in the big cities they had theater areas called floating islands, right? And they're kind of like red light districts, but they had kabuki, and these days, just like the Shakespeare plays, people think, "Ooh, it's so refined." No, it's bawdy. It's meant to be
yeah.
bawdy and dirty, just like Shakespeare, right? It's not, when you go watch all these, all doth they say to me, Hamlet. That's bullshit. Shakespeare was bawdy, dirty,
Yeah.
X-rated shit. That's what Shakespeare was, right? But nevertheless, the kabuki was the same way. And they would had this thing called ukiyo-e, which is they would take these wood blocks and they would chisel out these beautiful little things with it's an advertisement, but they use a piece of wood and chisel it all out. They would put ink on it, put a piece of paper, and they would make thousands of posters and hand them out all over the place. It's a flyer. Come to our kabuki show. So this paper garbage is all over the place. And by the way, when outsiders would visit the cities, like countryside people come to the cities, they would take these home and put them on the wall as their art, their home wall art, right? Interestingly. So you can find some of those in little farmhouses every now and then. And of course, they're worth a fortune, right? But because this garbage was all over the place, the Japanese ceramic makers would take this paper and wrap their bowls in it, right?
Mhm.
To keep them safe for shipping over to Europe. But when they came out in Europe, of course, they were very happy to have the ceramic. But they also saw, look at this beautiful art. And of course, Japanese art is all about one line, right? Well, how much can you
Yeah.
say with a single stroke, right? And that's what created modern art.
It
I
was the
shit you not.
Japanese's fault.
It's their fault. But no, seriously, that's where it came out of. So that was one effect. But the interesting thing was when they started shutting down, of course, those industries were shut down too. No, you're not shipping to these foreigners, right?
Mm,
So it got completely shut down. But the Europeans were still, and then, of course, very shortly after, the Americans were very desperate for this kind of ceramic. So who took over? Who filled that niche? Who did it? You can
I'm
say
I'm
it.
I'm
I know you can say
guessing
it.
the Scandinavians.
No, China.
Oh, China.
Yeah. And they made
China.
very, very inferior shit. So
Well, yeah,
that's
as they should.
why we use the word China, because from the late 1600s on, it was the Chinese artisans that were feeding the hunger of Europe for this type of ceramic, this
Mm,
porcelain, right? And it was far inferior, but they had no choice because Japan was completely shut down.
interesting. And then eventually, old Whitey figured it out himself and
Hmm.
started making their own.
Hmm.
I
That's
like it.
true.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Literally, the whitest of the whites,
The hit.
apparently.
That's true. Yeah. But there you go, a history of the where China comes from, as in the dishes. And I come from a generation where it was still imperative that when you got married, you had a China cabinet with China in
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Hmm.
My mother and father had my cousin has it now because I didn't have space for it in my house. My sisters didn't want it. My family, my actual family's china set that is 1800 sometime is when they bought it originally, and we had a giant china, I mean giant china cabinet. Took a whole wall up, had lights in it, had the back and a mirrored back, the whole nine.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, Full of this stuff. And it was, I have no idea what it's worth. I don't think we ever got it appraised, but like I said, my cousin has it now. And then we gave it, I think it ended up in my other cousin's hands, pretty sure, who has like 8 kids,
Hmm.
because none of us objected to it. And it makes sense for the person with the biggest family. That way it can keep going. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, it It's a very that was a very real thing that people did. They
Oh
had
yeah.
their family china,
Yep.
and they kept it forever,
Oh yeah.
forever.
Yep, absolutely. Young people are boring these days. They don't do anything interesting. They're so modern and
True.
free that they have nothing. Genius.
They're perfect little consumers, aren't they?
Geniuses. Yeah.
Yep.
But whatever makes you happy, I guess. I think I have this set a little bit. No, it's set proper. Okay. But yeah, no, it used to be a thing, but tradition and all that stuff kind of adds layers to life, doesn't it?
Well, it
And
adds roots.
Yeah, and they've just these days we're just abandoning it for nothing, nothing.
I genuinely, truly believe that's why there's such a mental health crisis in America. Nobody knows anymore where they come from.
They don't know anything
I mean,
about
there's some
themselves, who they are, what they
yeah,
are. They have no
they have no way
connection.
they have no way to exactly, they have no connection to the past because one thing, I don't believe in ancestor worship necessarily, but I do believe in reverence.
Yeah.
And for the simple fact of they are you.
Hmm.
Yeah, there is very little genetic difference between you and your grandfather, for instance. Like you're basically him, so you should respect him because you should respect yourself.
Sure,
And
that's right. And where
you
are
should
you in
have
the
those
flood,
levels.
right?
Yeah, exactly. You should have that connection. You should have something. Like I have, for me personally, the thing I have to my grandfather, besides a bunch of his World War II medals and things, which I do have, uh, he used to own a gas station. When he got out of the war, he used some of his GI money and bought a gas station. And he got married to my grandma, and that's what he did for the first 10 years or so after the war. Eventually, he opened other businesses too, but that was his main business.
Hmm.
And I have one of his pumps, one of his old
Nice.
pumps from his gas station. That's my connection directly to my grandfather. Every
That's
time I
cool.
look at it, I have it.
That's a nice item
Um,
too. Yeah.
yeah, it's nice and heavy. It's not, you can't lose it. Stuff like that. But that's my point, though. There's a lot of people out here who don't have anything like that, and they would think it's almost weird to do so. It's because they've been raised in a culture of pure consumption.
Yeah, they're
If it
lame.
has no use, get rid of it.
They're
Yeah,
lame.
it is
Just
lame.
use,
I
use
agree
the
with you.
word. They're lame brained. And I'm not using that as a simple insult. I'm literally saying they are because they have
Yes.
no connection to anything around them. They have no depth to them. Look how shallow they are.
NPCs.
Yes, they are. They are
NPCs.
NPCs, and we're going to get into a couple stories today that highlight that point.
I love it.
Dave, I
I
do
love the
love.
symmetry.
Yeah, no, I do try to force things. Dave said bowls and stuff he likes. I agree. I like those kind of things. Another thing I love is boxes, and I try to make my own. And here,
Mhm.
back in, I guess, October or September or something like that, back in the fall, because I work on them. I don't have a lot of time, but there's dry wood in a little teeny work area, so you can come back to them weeks later. But
Yep.
I work on making my little boxes, and I was very elated, Thundero, because
Mhm.
I after it was all done, I was very happy with all the lines. It was very smooth and everything like that, and I measured everything, and I put my um, God, my brain is failing me. What's uh the little thing that's shows perfect 90 degrees angles? An angle? God damn
Yeah,
it!
I mean, yeah, you can just use the word an angle. Yeah, that works.
There's another
Um,
word though.
oh my brain's failing me. Come on,
What
chat, help us
whatever
out.
whatever I put my little I got the woodpecker ones, by the way. Really good
Yeah.
company. But I put it on, I checked it all the way around, all the side, because it's a box, right? And it was
Mhm.
perfect.
I love it.
Yeah. And you
I've
know
always
how.
liked. I've always had a weird fascination with bottles. No idea why. I
Yeah,
don't drink. Have no interest in drinking,
thanks,
but
Dave.
I love liquor bottles. They
Mm,
just. I'll literally sometimes
they
just
are
stop
pretty.
in the liquor aisle and just look at them because I like them. I don't know
Yeah,
what it is. Something about them. I'm
yeah.
very fascinated by them.
I have all of those things. I bought a woodpecker set. It's a really, really good company, by the way. But yeah, I was talking
Yep.
about a square. Yeah,
Yeah. Square.
I put all that stuff, and you know how I finally, and I don't know why I was so stupid for so long, because I was building the box and the lids separately, right?
Mm.
And then I was watching this YouTube man. I was watching a YouTube video, and what the pros were doing was building a box and then cutting the lid off, and therefore it
That's smart.
perfectly marries. And I was like, "Oh,
That's
well, let me
that's
try."
why they're the pros.
It's
That's
right,
why. They're
and it
efficient.
worked.
Yep.
And it worked, but I got the smallest little work, corner though, dude. I mean, it's like a work desk size, literally, with just a bunch of hand tools hanging off and a couple of things. It's pathetic, really. But I don't know. I'm just obsessed with it. So
Oh, you'd like my garage. I don't use it anywhere near as much as I should. But when we bought this house, there's a big full-sized workbench that covers basically the whole. I have a car and a half garage, covers the whole back end of my garage. And it's got the board, the tack board. It's got all of it. Came with a bunch of nice little, little drawers,
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And yeah, it's pretty nice. The guy who owned this house before us, we bought it from some old guy who lives in Florida now, apparently. But the guy we bought it from, he used to build clocks. He would
Oh,
build little clocks,
nice.
and I still have one. He
Oh,
left one in the house when
nice.
he sold it. Yeah, pretty cool.
That is cool. I love watching those guys do their thing. It's freaking ridiculous. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I've never made a barrel myself, Dave. But I've seen my uncles and grandpa do it. They used to
Oh
make
man,
their own.
that's work.
Yeah, well, they used to make their own to put the bait in for fishing
Hmm.
back in the day. These days, I think they just use those blue, those big blue plastic barrels. It's like maybe 55-gallon size. You've probably
Yep.
seen blue plastic things, but when I was
Yep.
young, they'd make them themselves. I've never done it though,
Oh
but I
man,
get
it
the
used to
principle.
be a whole ordeal to make barrel. Like that was a straight up professional barrel
Hmm.
maker because it was work.
Oh
Like
yeah,
that's hard work putting a barrel together. Now they do it in 5 seconds in a plastic mold.
yeah,
There you
that's
go.
true.
There's the barrel.
But those guys, they're all islanders, right? They're all from
Yep.
Block Island. They grew up there. They've moved out and around now, but they all grew up on the island, and island people are self-sufficient, right? They have to
Yep.
do everything themselves. So they were like that. My grandmother, my grandpa, my uncles, they're all like that. My cousins and I, we're plastic people.
Yep.
We're lit.
Yeah, I
We're
grew up.
useless.
I grew up fairly close, about an hour and a half or so from just hard Amish country
Hmm.
in Ohio, the Ohio Amish. And yeah, you could get that kind of stuff from them if you wanted to.
You could.
Barrels, nice furniture,
Mhm.
handcrafted furniture. It's expensive, and the Amish don't mess around. They will haggle. But yeah, it was always high quality stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how much work. We don't even understand how easy our lives are. We don't get it because
Yeah.
simple
It
things
is
like a
true.
barrel was so much work back in the day. Like, it was
It
it was
was.
50 hours of work if you were going to build a big one. And now it's like I said, 5 seconds, 10 seconds in the plastic mold. They make a nice barrel for you. There you go. It'll hold all your stuff, 50-gallon, whatever.
Oh yeah. No,
It's
they're
it's
pretty amazing.
ridiculous.
No glue or anything either. It's all
Yep.
pressure fit, and the
Yep.
wood, of course, will expand and make it watertight. But
Yep.
my uncle Dave was the one that had to do a lot of the woodworking for that because it's a big family and they just delegate stuff. But because of that, he turned out to be an amazing woodworker, dude. I mean, absolutely,
Yeah.
the things he can make are just stunning. It's really impressive what those old people can do. And but anyway, yeah, these kind of things are certainly interesting. Hello, lady, welcome back. Indeed, I have been traveling and I am very tired and sore. Yeah, they were called Coopers. That's right, Dave. But my family weren't Coopers. They were just like I said, they're island people, and island people have to do everything themselves. If you're on the mainland, you can go to a Cooper and get your stuff, right? But they didn't have that option. So they just it's just the way island people are. I imagine even today there's a little bit of that still going on. They're
Oh yeah.
extremely self-reliant people because they have no choice in the matter, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's why a lot of the country folk were that way too.
Yeah.
Before the automobile, travel was work. It's real hard to
Oh yeah.
to manage a carriage or whatever for very long periods of time, long distance. It's
Mhm.
work, physically demanding, things like this. And people don't even understand. A lot of driving is physically demanding. Even modern driving is still
Oh
it
yeah.
depending.
I
I
know.
think it's every 2 or 3 hours you burn almost 1,000 calories driving. Just
Oh,
driving,
really?
just sitting
Well,
there driving. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
lot.
no, I drove a lot this past couple of
Now
weeks.
imagine having to drive horses
Oh,
and
yeah.
with a wooden rickety
Yeah.
carriage down some roads that aren't roads
Eh,
for, all day long in the sun.
mhm.
Like,
Well, and then that's assuming you live in a horse culture, right? Like the Japanese
yes.
weren't that, right? They do everything
Yep.
by their own foot. But like for instance, I can drive. I'm a little fast, but it takes me 2 hours to get to Fukuoka. It takes the normal person three, 2.5, 3, right?
Mhm.
But I do, and I got a beautiful sports car too. Anyway,
Nice.
but 2 hours to Fukuoka, so it isn't that bad. Although it is very focused driving because I am driving in high speed, so it's it's precision driving, right?
Mhm.
But nevertheless, 2 hours. Now, in the past, it would probably take 10 days for a person to walk that,
Yeah.
maybe more, maybe 2 weeks, just to cover that path, that distance I covered in 2 hours. It is radically different. But I didn't know that about the driving and the calories, but it makes sense.
Yep.
But nevertheless, I did have fun. So the kids came back for the holidays, and of course we went up to them. Got to see the kids. I got mad at my son a little bit, but I had a lot of fun with him too. Because he's like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna throw all this stuff in my apartment away and just buy new." And I'm like, what?"
Oh no. Uh-oh.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
see, I had to make sure I was correct, Chester, because you know me. And yeah, driving your car is 150 to 250 calories per hour, depending
oh
on the
wow,
size of the car.
there you
Yeah,
go. I didn't know that.
there you go.
But I told him, look, you can do whatever you want with this stuff, but at least try to make some money back on it. At least try to sell
Yeah,
it.
sell it.
I
Yeah.
mean, when he's like, "Oh, I didn't think about that." Oh, I want to slap him.
He doesn't have great as the man Andrew Tate says, perspicacity. He doesn't pay
No.
attention to opportunities to make money.
Yeah, he understood after I talked to him about it. But I mean, here we got
Yep.
a master degree engineer graduate, at Japanese university, which ain't no freaking joke, right? I
That's
mean, the
true.
test levels they have are mad, dude, mad.
Yep.
So the fact that he has that degree screams a lot. And especially in Japan, that carries weight because they know, right? And like my wife, when she was just a little, at first she was just like a little secretary, and then her boss found out what university she went to. She got $1,000 raise on the spot.
Dang.
Yeah, just because
That
of
don't suck.
it don't suck. And of course now she's basically a secretary, but the classical version of a secretary. She takes care of all their
Right.
banking and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But nevertheless, I did have a nice day with the boy. We went out because my wife, in Nagasaki, it was a working vacation. She was actually they were meeting with some Dutch shippers and with the boss being a guy from New York. So she was working. So for that day, I went out with the boy and we went and played pool.
Mhm.
And we went out and we hopped around at different taverns and we went to 3 different taverns and had food and stuff. It was a good fun time. I haven't played pool in 20 years, dude. I used to be pretty good, right? I mean,
Yep.
amateur good, right? First couple of games it was a bit rusty, but boy, it started coming back, dude. It came back real quick. I was making single bank, double bank shots, hard slice. Oh, it was really a lot of fun. Because like I said, when I was in America, I had my own stick. I had a glove.
He had a pool glove. I love it.
I did. But I was pretty good amateur though. I was a pretty solid pool player. And It was nice to see it come back and I smoked the boy hard, right? I think we played 7 games. I won 6 of them. And I only lost one because I scratched on the 8 ball. But then we went and played darts, same place. And he smoked my ass. I suck at darts, dude. I suck. He's pretty good at that. That's his main thing. But it was nice doing. I've never done that kind of stuff with a boy before, so that was fun. And we went out
Yep.
and had jump around the taverns and stuff like that at nighttime, and we had a good time. So that was really nice. But mainly it was a lot of I did find proper 5-hour ribs, dude. Barbecue ribs.
Ooh.
That's I was wow, dude. Uh,
Ooh.
and you know where it was? It was in Fukuoka, which of course is where the best food is, but it was at the official Major League Baseball restaurant next to Hawks Dome.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
weird, but they were proper 5-hour ribs, dude. Proper. I was shocked,
Oh
but
yeah, it's pretty nuts the kind of stuff you can get at ballparks now. Like it's not
yeah,
like it used to be. You can get full on meals as you found out.
yeah.
Like even the store there, but like at the ballparks, a lot like the one in Detroit, Comerica Park, the Tigers Field. It's owned by Little Caesars. They're owned by Little Caesars. The team is the same guy who owns Little Caesars owns them,
Oh,
which
really?
is one of the
Okay.
pizza chains. Yeah, and so they have a Little Caesars right in the stadium, like a full-on restaurant. You can go in and eat, and they have other ones too. And even the ballpark here in my city, which is their AAA team, Detroit's AAA team,
Mhm.
they have a couple bars, and I think yeah, they have a Tony Paco's, which is a Hungarian like hot dog place
Ooh.
right there in the stadium that you can walk into from inside the stadium. You can walk
Yeah.
into it from outside on the street too.
Yeah, this is
So,
on it's literally just outside of the stadium. It's part of the structure,
yep,
the structure, yeah.
yep.
But it was really good. And there were two things I noticed eating there that I thought were very interesting. Which it isn't a negative, but it was the barbecue sauce was that Midwestern vinegar sauce,
Hmm.
which I'm not the biggest fan of. I just didn't grow up with it, but it's not like it's bad. It's just it's not what I'm used to, right? But it was fine. It was
Right.
delicious. But the other thing I noticed was all the waitresses in there were rather large-breasted.
I like that.
But that's hard hunting in Japan, dude. That is hard hunting
Yeah,
to find
someone out there
big-breasted girl, pretty girls.
is a man of culture. I
It's an
see.
American,
That's right. It's a
and they
man
were
of
in,
culture.
they had tight white button-up shirts too. Thank
I
the
love
Lord
it.
for Americans. There you
That's
go.
right.
hmm
We understand. We
hmm
understand titties better than anybody.
We do
Better than
it.
anybody.
I enjoyed them, and they were nice. Of course, I don't talk about it. I actually married a large-breasted Japanese woman, but
You never talk about it. No, never. You've never mentioned it once.
not once. Yeah, yeah. But they are rare because there are flat-chested women in general here. They're just flat,
Yeah.
flat, right? And whatever they function. So good enough. And it's not like I don't appreciate some nice perky breasts. I do actually. And but I was like, this is obviously owned by an American. Obvious. Dude, I've been to Hooters in Tokyo, and they're all whole ton of girls running around. Two of them had proper breast sizes. And I don't even mean large Western, measurement for large. I mean just normal. The rest of them were flat-chested girls at Hooters. So this Major League Baseball, this MLB thing, I forget, it had some man's name on it.
Mm.
They were all very large-breasted, pretty girls too. Very pretty. So that was yeah, I enjoyed that. Yeah.
So you're telling me I need to come to Fukuoka and go to the MLB stores? What
You
you're telling me?
do, you do. The food actually was pretty okay. I wouldn't get a hamburger; it's not good. But their Cuban sandwiches, their Cuban, what is that Cuban bread called? What's
I
that
don't know.
called?
Trying to.
Just Cuban bread. I know it has a name. Someone in the chat will help me out. But they had a couple of those, and those were excellent. They had like a Cuban bread steak sandwich that was really, really good. The ribs were great. The little bean meat sauce that goes with your ribs, which is kind of standard, right? Were not good. They were not good. Yeah.
Not a good time. They didn't get that right.
Later, lady. She's upset by the boobies. I think it's okay. Uh, uh, it's just Cuban bread. I thought they had a name. I think they have a name for it, dude. Like the Italians have bruschetta, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we call it just Cuban bread, but I think they have a name for it. But well, it's good stuff, though. I do love the Cuban bread. It is excellent stuff, though. But anyway, I should get on with the show because I do have work and things to do. So let's go ahead. And speaking of breasts, my second article covers breasts. actually.
Well, that's
Uh,
no good. We don't want them covering the breasts.
well, no, well, it discusses.
Ah, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, discusses.
I'll allow it.
So let's go ahead and get into that, and then
Let's
we'll
see what we
do
got.
this over here.
Oh yeah, this was rough. Jeremy Renner's sister provides promising update on his recovery after he was involved in horrific snowplow accident.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
he was trying to do the right thing, and that was his reward.
well, I mean, yeah, this was nothing weird or bad. His One of his family members was driving a car. He lives in Aspen, and it was a lot of snow. And of course, because he lives in Aspen, and he probably has like an estate, right? He has his own snowplow to deal with the property, right? But
Yep.
one of his family members had got the car stuck, so he went to get a snowplow to dig it out, which he did. And then he came over after doing so, talked to him, okay, you can go ahead now, type of thing. But he didn't put the brake on, it sounds like.
Yep.
And it started rolling, so he ran to get up in there and stop it, but he got run over instead. Right?
Yep.
This is what happened. It's very simple. No, nothing weird. It's just shit happens, right?
Yep.
And he's alive, which is nice. But and they don't say much about this in the article, but the information we have coming out is he's probably going to lose the leg,
Yep.
which sucks, dude. It sucks. This is from his bed, so he's got to live, which is good. But I don't know if we'll ever see him again, though. Who knows? Maybe he's got money, so with modern medicine, they might be able to save the leg. But those are extremely heavy vehicles. We're not talking about your little Bobcat here. We're talking about a proper snowplow, right?
Yeah.
A tracked one. Yeah. And the fact that there was so much snow on the ground might have but was saved his life, because more than likely he probably got when went over and probably sunk him in the snow, right?
Right. Yeah, it's rough. We'll see. He might be able to pull off some
Maybe,
kind of recovery even with just one leg. Uh,
maybe. Yeah.
other actors have pulled it off similar,
Yep.
and especially nowadays, some of the prosthetics depends where they have to cut. Some of these prosthetics, I mean, he'll be walking again if he gets a good one. If he's lucky. So we'll see. The sad thing is he hasn't really done much. I'm trying to think of the last movie he was even in that wasn't a Marvel movie or Marvel whatever.
Well, he was
Uh,
in that Born Legacy spinoff thing.
yeah, but that was like 10 years ago. Just
It was, but it wasn't bad actually. It wasn't bad. It was pretty solid. It had a good story. It was a solid little movie actually. But yeah, no, he does my, and they completely disrespected him in the last thing we saw, right?
yeah.
And they even have a picture up here, right? This nonsense right here. Yeah, this
Hmm.
nonsense, which no one gave a shit about. But I just wanted to put it out. You know, fast recovery, sir. Hope everything goes well. I mean, this guy, I haven't heard any noise or bad things about him. He seems like a nice fella. He's
Yep.
solid little actor. I saw him at Tokyo Comic Con at a distance, and he was smiley and signing errors. He was really nice. So I just wanted to say, you know, heal up, dude. He does a series on Paramount Plus, the Mayor of Kingstown. Second season premiere this week. Oh, does he? I didn't know that. Yeah, I don't really watch
Mm.
a lot of TV though, Eric. But it might be good. Anyway, I'm going to move on. I just, sympathies. Anyway,
Yeah.
speaking of boobies.
Romeo and Juliet stars Olivia Hussey, that's a funny name,
Mhm,
and Leonard Whiting
mhm.
file $100 million sexual abuse suit against Paramount Pictures over 54-year-old nude scenes in film.
Okay.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's a grudge right there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a huge problem with it. First of all, none of you have probably ever heard of Olivia Hussey or Leonard Whiting.
Nope.
Yeah, especially Leonard, because I couldn't name anything else he was in, and I can't name anything else she's in. Although they probably did. They're theater people; they might have done something. But I know with Olivia here, the only thing I know she did was this. And yeah, baby.
I see why they wanted to get them out.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. But she's an absolute looker. After she did the movie, Dean Martin's son begged her to date him, and they dated for a little while. Then she left him, and she married a Japanese guy. That's why I know her really well. Of course, the movie was excellent, Romeo and Juliet. That the one from this, what was it, 70s, but
Mm.
60s or whatever it was. But I know her because she's married Japanese guy, still married to him, living here in Japan, and she's famous here because of that, right?
Yeah.
But Romeo and Juliet, the movie that they're talking about, um, was a major hit. I'm pretty sure it won several Oscars. I know it was nominated for a bunch. It was actually a really good telling of Romeo and Juliet. And the problem they're saying in this lawsuit is they were 15 and they were
Oof.
both 15 and they had a nude scene and they felt that they were forced into it. Now, I don't know anything about this Leonard kid. I don't know anything about him. Of course, he's old. He's 70 something now, right? He's not a kid. I don't. I
Mm.
know nothing about this guy. I do know her because she's the one that got a little fame out of it because it was a really good movie and she's freaking stunning, right?
Yeah.
But I will say this: I've seen her myself, and they do mention this in the article in an interview, talking about the sex scene and saying it was no big deal. She actually thinks it was important for the movie. Now, I don't agree. I don't think that scene was necessary at all. Just having an intense passion, which those two had chemistry like crazy, and she did date that boy for like a couple of weeks, right?
Mm.
Which is not uncommon in Hollywood, by the way. But they all get hot and bothered and they just want to fuck. I mean, let's be honest, right? Which good on you. But she has stated in the past, at least in one interview I've seen, that she didn't have any problem with it. So all of a sudden, what do you have a problem with? This is literally 54 years ago. What do you on about, right?
Mm.
But it's all tied into this Me Too crap, right?
Mm-hmm.
This Me Too nonsense. And I remember her in the interview. I don't know if they mentioned the article or not, saying that we're all theater people. We know what's up. Yeah, of course you do. Have you ever met theater people? They get naked around each other constantly. They're incredibly promiscuous, right? Theater people, everyone's fucking everybody, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way they are, right? And you wonder why we get so many screwed up kids come out of the industry, right?
Yeah. No,
Um,
it's not a mystery.
no, yeah, but I
Not a
mean,
mystery at all.
why after all this time? Well, me too. I know this doesn't mean anything, and no one gives a shit, and they won't win this lawsuit. There's no way. It's way past the statute of limitation. Way past. They won't. They
Mm-hmm.
can. That's why they're suing, right? Because criminally they can do nothing, civilly they could try. But I don't know that they'll get anywhere with it. But it's just so dumb, dude. It's just so dumb. You're famous for one thing in your life, and you're going to try to bang on it.
Yeah.
And you're near
Exactly.
death, right? You're 70 something years old, and you're going to bang on it. Unbelievable, dude. You know,
Yeah. It seems like a cash grab. Like it seems
yeah,
very frivolous
that's what
because
it
why
seems like.
why now?
Yeah.
Why after all this time have you decided this was a major problem? Now, in fairness, I agree with them. They were minors. They shouldn't be nude on camera.
And well, go
But
talk to Brooke Shields.
yeah, exactly. But it's not like it's unique in Hollywood. It's happened on more than one occasion. And you were apparently fine enough with it for 54 years to not sue. So what are we doing here?
Yeah, no, it's a
Like
cash grab,
honestly,
Me
that
Too
really only
environment.
need that's the only real defense they need. Like that's just way too long for any reasonable person to think that there's
Care.
actually a problem.
Yeah, no, and especially
Yeah.
with her interviews are going to come out. They're going to come out if they actually take this to trial. You're probably right. It's a
Yeah.
cash grab. They're looking for some settlement, right? It's probably what they're looking for. But whatever. You have to admit this girl's a stunner, though, dude.
Yeah, not bad.
She is this
Would not kick her out of
Argentinian
bed for eating crackers.
origin. This girl. Yeah.
Oh, so she's a Nazi. I
Yep.
see.
There you go. Oh
I
my
see.
God, look at her, dude. She's gorgeous. But have you ever
Very
seen this
pretty.
Romeo? This is probably the best Romeo and Juliet, by the way.
I have not. I didn't. I don't even know if I ever knew it existed, to
Yeah,
be honest
go.
with you. But
Yeah.
The '60s was a weird decade. A lot of '60s stuff that people say is really, really good. I have not only have I never seen, I've never even had an interest. Now there's
Yeah,
some
well,
stuff from the '60s where obviously I wanted to watch it, but by and large, for whatever reason, like the '70s is completely different. I've watched all kinds of stuff from the '70s and loved a lot of it.
yeah.
Um, but for some reason, the '60s, I don't know if it was just the culture of the '60s or what. A lot of their films are repugnant to me. Like I don't like them. They just, I'm just like,
Oh,
eh.
I didn't know that, Elrod. So she's done some work lately. Oh, okay. Because I haven't. The only thing I know about her is Romeo and Juliet. Yeah, no. '70s got some good stuff. '60s definitely has got some good stuff, of course. Amongst the sea of bad, as usual. But keep in mind that the late '60s and '70s was the sexual revolution, and there was a lot of weirdness going on with that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But if you're interested in Romeo and Juliet, this is the best version. It just is, right?
very well, a good adaptation is
It's
what
a
you're telling me.
great, just solid movie, right?
Yeah,
And of course, the whole thing with Romeo and Juliet is not just the love story. A lot of people get lost in that. It's more about the whole story of Romeo and Juliet is classism, is really what
yeah,
it's about, right?
yeah,
And especially when you're looking at the times it was written, because love, marrying for love is a very, very modern thing, extremely modern thing, right? Like I'm
yes,
talking about end of the 19th century modern, right? So 100 and, 30, 50 years or so. That's not a thing. But having little love stories here and there throughout history, of course, have existed. And it's always with some men of royalty because they're the only ones that can afford to marry for love, right?
right.
But because you got to keep this is coming out, where this is coming out of the 17th century, right? This is where this story is coming out of, right? The 1600s,
Mhm.
right? So, or is it the 1500s? Well, one or the other.
15.
So I think it's the 1600s, isn't it? Well,
I think
anyway, it
so.
doesn't matter. But you got to think about the period it's coming out of, and what the purpose of the Shakespeare plays. And it's a real shame that the British are so headstrong because, in regards to Shakespeare, because all the evidence is well out there. There are multiple documentaries. William Shakespeare was not a guy named Shakespeare. He was hired. His name probably was William. He was an illiterate actor, right? And he was hired to front Lord Bacon and his crew, who were trying to unify language because they were pissed off that they couldn't go to their baker and then cross the street to their fishmonger and be able to communicate properly. That's really what it comes out of: the nobility wanting to unify the language, but they knew they couldn't do it with their own face because of classism, right?
Yeah,
Because the poor or the even the gentry couldn't stand the nobility, right? And they would not listen to anything they said, so they had to trick you, and that's why they're so bawdy and dirty because it's meant for the common man, right? Because they were trying to unify
right.
language, and the British are so damn headstrong that they're like, no, William Shakespeare was the most genius writer in history. Yeah, Lord Bacon was, and his boys were quite freaking genius. So why don't you lay some love on them, especially Lord Bacon? That freaking dude, he gave us.
Everybody loves bacon.
Well, dude, he gave us the modern scientific method. That dude is
Yeah,
important. That's an
yeah.
important Englishman,
Well,
right?
if let's suppose, because I actually agree with you, I think Shakespeare's mostly nonsense. Um, so let's suppose that's 100% absolutely true,
It's been
verifiable.
proven, dude. Yeah.
He would basically be the English version. He would not even basically. He would be the English version of Da Vinci. That's what it
Yeah,
would do for him as a person historically.
exactly.
Like it
And
would
he
be a
is though.
complete shift. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But for some reason, they can't let go of their hero, their
Yeah,
nephew.
it's really weird, even though it's been, emphatically proven, right?
Yeah,
And it's really unfortunate because you're right, he was a Da Vinci-esque character. Now we can't take away his sensei, John Dee, who is very
hmm,
important in that as well. But still, Bacon is a very important British character.
yeah,
But nevertheless, so this wink wink classism, Romeo and Juliet, if you actually read the original play. in its original text, you can see the sarcasm of the writer,
Yeah.
right? It's in many ways mocking the middle class and poor,
Yeah.
which I think is
What a
funny.
surprise.
Yeah, which of
What a
course,
surprise.
tongue in cheek is what it was. But nevertheless, we'll move on from this. But it's just so stupid, dude. This Me Too crap. But you can't get. I mean, he's a good looking boy too. But she's just damn, dude. And she's perfect. Even though her eyes are, the kind of the wrong color. She would sell for an Italian for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem, right?
No
But
problem.
anyway, thank you for your beauty, ma'am. Yes. Moving on.
It's quite lovely.
Yeah, she is beautiful.
Oh boy. Megan review. Outrageously fun PG-13 horror, according to Mr. Saywin.
That
I
is
assume that's how you.
that's sarcasms. That's sarcasm. Very, very, very bad movie.
Yeah.
Unintentionally hilarious, right?
Is
Because
it
it's so
one of
dumb.
those movies that's so bad that you could confidently say it's objectively bad?
um, yes, but it might turn out to be one of those movies that's so bad it's good.
Yeah.
It might turn
It's
into
good
one of
for all the
those.
wrong reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. But here, once again, this is basically child's play. But instead of having
Yeah.
a boy, we got a girl. Of course. That's what it
Which we've
is.
already done in Child's Play a
Which,
bunch of
which
times
we
for
did.
sure.
That's true. But we have to eliminate the boy completely, including the little boy, because it has to be all girl now, because that's what matters. That's what's important, right? That
Yeah.
picture right there is all
That's
you
right.
need to know. And of
That's right.
course, they tried to reboot Child's Play a year or two ago with a similar Android premise, which didn't work because they missed the whole point. What was great about Child's Play? Practical effects, yeah, that was awesome. Those guys kicked ass. They did a great job. It might be one of the great practical effect movies of all time. It's in the
Pretty
top
good.
10 at least. I mean, people misunderstand that, but they were they were awesome what they did with practical effects in that movie, the original Child's Play. But that's not why. Was it the mom? No. Was it the little kid actor? No. Why was this movie awesome? Why is Child's Play eternal? Why does Chucky exist? Oh, I don't know. Charles Lee fucking Ray. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
this guy. This dude right here, Brad Dourif. That's why the movie was badass. Because Brad Dourif is badass. And you can't remake badassery. It is or it
That's right.
isn't,
That's right.
right?
And
Uh,
that's the crazy thing, right? So, I've often said on here that I think horror is a dead genre because it became, and Child's Play is more of a, it's got some horror elements to it too because dolls are creepy as shit.
yeah.
But it's more of a slasher just with the doll aesthetic. But regardless of that, this is one of the only ones where I would say it's an exception. Not because it's a great horror film, it doesn't terrify me or anything. It's just entertaining as hell. Chucky is
He
hilarious. I
is.
don't care what anybody says. He's fun to watch kill people.
He
He just
is.
is.
He is. And it's because of Brad Dourif, dude. It's
Yeah,
because of the character he made. Now, this picture right here, I don't think is the Charles Lee Ray. I think this is from Carpenter's Prince of Darkness or whatever that movie was called. I'm
I
pretty
think you're
sure
right.
it's that character. But I just love this picture, so I put it up. But Dourif, Brad here, he is the essence of Chucky. And this right here is just a hack attempt to remake that, but in the feminine, as if it even matters, dude. As if it even matters. And it's a very sad, sad attempt. It's dumb, it's creepy, which in the wrong way, right?
Mhm.
And let's take
Why
a
is
look
this
at
doll? Why does the doll look like Amber Heard? Are we
yeah,
gonna? Can I point that out?
because it's time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway,
It
let's
is her.
take a look at
It's
this
true.
here. Let's take a look at this trailer real quick here. Okay. All right. Okay. Going home. Sad little girl. She's sad. She's not happy. She's, yeah, we're divorced. Where's daddy? Daddy's dead. Okay. They can't have families in movies. Yes. No
They're
families.
not
James.
allowed.
It
Not
is
allowed
from James
families.
Wan though. but it's not great.
It was long.
And mom brings home the newest technology. Here for you.
Wait, so there's no magic in it at all? There's no.
No, no, it's like the reboot
Come
they did of Child's
on.
Play. But it's the same story though. You see what I'm trying to point out. It's the same exact. It is Child's Play, just
Yeah.
feminized, right?
See, that's something though that the original had in it that made it in a way kind of special was the mysticism.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? The
yeah,
fact
yeah.
that he was basically necromancied into a doll.
Yeah. Well, he
That was
did it. He
cool.
did it to himself, dude.
Yeah, that was cool.
It
That's
was
just
cool.
something that they don't do enough of in horror anymore, period. It's always some explanation, right? That isn't that. And I don't know. That was just something I really liked about the original movie was the mysticism in it.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And that scene where it should be hokey and dumb as shit, right?
Yep.
Him spieling out these Latin sigils, right? Spells.
Yep.
But it's not though, right? Oh no, we did the ET. You stealing from Spielberg now? What are you doing? Did you catch that? Okay, good, good.
Like, why did they make the doll pretty? Right? Like she's clearly intended to be pretty.
I
I
guess,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
I just think they missed the reason why the Child's Play was successful. They completely botched it here.
Hmm.
And it's because Chucky is so ridiculously entertaining. That's why. There's no other reason. It's not like it's a brilliant story or they came up with some great new way to do horror or slasher films. It's simply Chucky's awesome. We like to watch Chucky kill people. It's fun.
Hmm. And you could
Yeah, it
tell,
can have some horror elements and some creepiness and some jump scares or whatever.
and
But
look at this right
after
here.
the first
Go
yeah,
ahead, go ahead.
after the first shock of it, of oh, it's a doll that moves around and stuff. Yeah, after that, it just you lose the shock of that, right? And now it's just okay, Chucky's hilarious. He's just running around killing people.
Which is the point. Which is the point.
Yes.
Yeah. But they just keep trying to do this nonsense, and it's not like this couldn't have been a good idea, but it's
Yeah.
you can taste the politics, dude.
She's an AI doll. My wife's in here in case anybody can hear. She's an AI doll
She
that
is,
apparently goes rogue
as they
and starts
always
killing people.
do. When will we
Yeah, I don't know why
learn?
we keep making AIs because obviously it's a bad plan. I don't know how many movies we have warning us that hey, what happens if this thing goes
Hmm.
crazy?
Hmm.
Well,
Elon's
I guess we die.
terrified of them.
Yep.
He is.
It's
Uh,
it's why I think he got so heavily invested in making his own because he wants to be the guy who sets the rules for it.
Maybe.
Because if anybody else does, we're gonna have a problem.
No, he really is scared about that. No joke. And maybe you're right. He wants to be the guy to set the precedent to control it. But whatever. It's really not a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now this person's giving it a way higher score than I would give this movie, because it's dumb. And it's just trying to copy on stuff. But nevertheless, all praise Charles Lee Ray, sir.
That's right.
Thank you, Mr.
That's
Dorff.
right.
We appreciate you, sir. Anyway, moving
Yeah,
on.
Chucky's one of those movies that absolutely should not work. Child's Play is, and most people just call it Chucky, but those shouldn't work. But they do because of that character, because of his character work. That's the only reason it works.
It
You
is.
put
It's
anybody else in
100%.
there,
Yeah.
it's not. It falls apart. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's a totally
100%.
ridiculous
Yeah.
premise. A serial
100%.
killer necromancies himself into a doll and starts killing people. Like
Yeah,
what?
it's freaking awesome. And it is 100% this guy made that movie, and everyone knows it,
Yeah.
right? Now like I said before, I am throwing out props to the practical effect crew because it was freaking awesome. It was. Yes, Joshua, I did check the movie out whilst I was on vacation. I did see it.
Yeah.
I won't say where I saw it though.
Uh oh.
Anyway, but yeah, no, it was depressingly bad. It wasn't as bad as some stuff I've seen recently. To be fair, I would probably give it a 4.5. Was what my score would probably be. Because the overall acting in it isn't horrible,
Yeah.
you trust me, you've seen worse. And yeah, Dave, there's a lot of movies based on this premise. This is nothing new. I don't even
Yep.
think Chucky was new, right? When Child's Play
Mm,
came out. But I'm just saying that you can't recreate Brad Dourif.
that's right.
Yeah, that's the
This is
problem.
this is why I dislike remakes in general. And not just because they almost always fail, but because the
Yeah,
premise of them is stupid. You had when something was really successful and became a cult hit or even a mainstream hit, there's a reason for that, and that reason is not quantifiable. You can't just do it, or Hollywood would never miss. There'd never be a flop if they could just do it. Like you can make a sandwich, they would do it every time, but they can't because there's that secret sauce that
yep,
only a great director or a great actor or both or whatever can do, and no one besides Spielberg can do it super consistently, and he
that's
hasn't done
true.
it in years.
He hasn't, but he did have a good run. But another example. It's not really the same thing, but Blade Runner. You're dealing
Yeah.
with now those are biological androids. Those are not machines. They're biological androids. Which is very interesting because they keep insisting that the Blade Runner universe and the Alien universe are in the same universe. But if that is true, then Blade Runner is way in the future from
Mm.
Alien, right? And maybe that's the intention. Aliens is kind of, and then we're look how we destroyed ourselves, centuries later is Blade Runner maybe.
Right.
But nevertheless, in that, what makes Blade Runner successful? This, chasing after androids or replicants as they call them. I mean, you
Mm.
got Harrison Ford, pretty solid lead, right? But does he
Yeah.
make the movie?
I actually think it's one of his worst movies for him
Yeah.
as an actor, meaning he's not really the driving force.
No, and he's not supposed to be, and that's good
Right.
actually. Was it Stamos? Is it his name Stamos? Is that his name? His partner, his
Yes.
Latino partner, the guy in Miami Vice. I think was it him? He was cool. No, 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 no.
It's very cool.
Was it Daryl Hannah?
There.
No. Who was it?
Tell me, Chester, hit me with it.
It was the man, Dolph Lundgren. No, that's not his name. Rucker Hauer.
Yeah.
Rucker Hauer made that movie. He made the whole damn movie.
There's there's still people who talk about his final scene.
Oh
Like
my
today, to this
God,
day,
dude. That,
it's
and
still
that was
considered a masterpiece
then that
of
was ad
performance.
lib too.
Yes. A genuine masterpiece from cinematography to the score to his performance to just everything. Just
Almost.
that
Thank you,
that
Joe.
scene alone is considered masterful.
Oh, because it is. It's so
Yep.
poignant and powerful. Jesus Christ, dude. It's a Rucker Hauer made that movie. And that's the thing that they made. Yeah, Edward James Olmos. Thank you very much, Joe.
Yep.
Which he's awesome. By the way, I love that
He
actor.
is. He's a great actor.
But I'm just saying that Rucker Hauer made that movie, dude. And Lady Hawk, he's great in. What is that? That movie he's in there with Sylvester Stallone, where he's playing a bomber, a terrorist bomber.
Oh,
God damn it, I can't remember I can't remember the name of that. But is it Serpico? No, it's not Serpico.
no, it's not.
Serpico's
It's not.
no, Serpico's not even what you think it is. That's a completely different movie than you imagine it to be. Actually, it's not a gangster cop drama. It's not. Someone help me out. What is the name of the Sylvester Stallone Rucker Hauer movie where Rucker Hauer's a terrorist bomber? Even in that, it's just Rucker Hauer's badass. Hobo with a shotgun, please.
Yeah.
Please. I mean, Rucker Hauer was the man. That's all there is to it. But Cobra, no, 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 Nighthawks. Cobra is awesome, by the way. But no, Nighthawks, Nighthawks.
Cobra is awesome.
It is, but it could have been more awesomer. But anyway, thank you very much, Brad Dourif. And come on, dude, do better, do better. All right, moving on.
Moving on. Let's get out of here. Old Ethan Van
Uh,
Sciver himself reacts to the Joker becoming pregnant. New issue of Joker, the man who stopped laughing. DC Comics is quote. This is a quote from Ethan. DC Comics is getting weirder and weirder. Now, him becoming
yeah.
pregnant to me is less. That's burying the lead because okay, it's sci-fi. That's been happening since forever in sci-fi. taking away the Joker's laugh is far more egregious to me. That is, I mean, what? That's like taking away Batman's angst, right? The energy of Batman or his discipline would be a better example. You just decided he's a slovenly drunk now who sits around and eats Cheetos all day. That's Bruce
Or
Wayne. That's all
Bugs
Bruce
Bunny's
Wayne does.
sarcasm.
Yeah, you've completely killed the entire character. The whole point of Joker is he laughs at everything. He's insane. He's mad.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, but that's problematic. Insanity is problematic.
It's just dumb. Like DC, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, I guess I should give my opinion on it. Yeah, next.
I like it. Great American Family becomes fastest growing network on cable despite left wing outrage over traditional values. Huh.
Now,
Huh. I
I
will say I don't much like their logo there
GAC?
because it
No,
spells
GAC.
gack.
No, maybe not
Yeah.
GAC. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe not
maybe
gack.
we should have come up with something better than GAC.
Maybe
But
just a big G would work in there or an
yes,
A with
yeah,
some
GA,
American style.
GAC. But this is nothing that I'm very interested in. I'm not a Hallmark dude, right?
Me neither.
But I'm putting this up here because of the triumph of normality. Because
Yep.
what happened with this is you had some people, a bunch of people, including a very high level lady, I think, that worked for Hallmark. Hallmark finally caved in to the Glad people and decided to start doing lots of gay stuff on Hallmark. It outraged the staff, and they were like, "No, what are you talking about? Hallmark is a family channel, right? As if gays can't have families, which is weird. But anyway, they were outraged with it. You know what they did? They quit and they built their own goddamn channel.
I love it.
Yeah. And now it's just absolutely torrenting. I shouldn't use that word. Destroying
Yes.
uh, uh, Hallmark,
Very
especially in
good.
holiday themed things. But they're up and coming, and it goes to show you that the American people, we are sappy. We're
Yes.
sappy. We like it. We love
Sentimental
our
people.
musicals. We're sappy.
Yep.
It's just accept it, and we like our sappy shit. And Americans are like, oh, this is what we want. We don't care
Well, it
about
also
gay
shows
shit.
that I think the vast majority of Americans, I think the vast majority, over 80%, do believe in traditional values. They
Sure.
may not vote for them, or they might have a different perspective of the things they vote for, whether they violate them or not. But I think most Americans are fairly traditional, maybe not full conservative, but they do like the idea of, a lot of Hallmark movies are about Christmas and big Christmas celebrations, and they
Mm-hmm.
they like their traditions. We're
Yep.
traditional people because we're not founded on anything other than our traditions. Now there is some argument on that, but since at least 1900, America is not, if it's not even remotely a ethnic nation. It is a nation of tradition.
Yep.
And
And a
that
flag.
is why we're such a traditional people. That's why I think most Americans, black, white, whatever your color is, are traditional and they like traditional things. Now you have outliers who are in the classical sense degenerate because they're anti-traditional. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's why can't there be one channel that markets to traditional American values? Why? Why? Why can't there be one? And that is what Hallmark kind of was. I mean, yeah, they have a lot of sappy stuff, but traditional American values are really sappy.
They are.
That's
Where
okay.
Americans are incredibly sappy, and it's
Yes,
okay. Both can exist. Is the point?
that's right.
And these guys, they're having great success and good for them. Why wasn't it GAF? Oh, GAF. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should just be GA or a big G. Or
It,
since it's American, you could have put a big A with some Star
yep. Yep.
Spangled-ness
Yep.
to it or
Yep. Yep.
something.
Yep. Yep.
Not
GAC.
GAC.
Not GAC.
GAC is a terrible, terrible
Certainly
logo.
not GAC. But yeah, no, you're right, Bob. But I mean, but that's okay too, right, Bob? It's okay. Like I said, I'm not a Hallmark guy, but
Me
I
neither.
appreciate the value of it, though. Aw, aw. Mhm,
And
mhm.
honestly, most
Aw,
of the people who watch
exactly.
this stuff are women and moms and stuff, right?
Sure.
And
And the
that's
husband.
fine.
It is fine.
Why
Yeah.
can't why can't that exist? Why must it be supplanted and subverted at all costs so they can push this narrative that this is what the people actually want. No, it's clearly not, since this channel's blowing up.
Mhm.
Clearly isn't. The people, and the fact that, like, I'm not a Fox News guy, but Fox News is the biggest news channel in the world, or at least in America.
No,
So
worldwide. They are the big one, yeah.
yeah, so obviously there's something there. There's a market there.
Well, it's
But
Tucker
because
Carlson.
certain people want, well, yes, certain people want hegemony, they want hegemonic control over culture, they can't allow any dissent because dissent will, in their mind, equal some form of, I don't know, evil, I guess.
I suppose.
Um, it's silliness though, right? Because for the most part, nobody takes Hallmark movies seriously, right? They never did. No one does. No one watches those
No,
and
they're
be like,
just
"Yep,
sappy little dramas,
this is
dude.
deep. This is a deep. This is like Aristotle on the screen. It's
No.
so deep and
But
philosophical." No one's doing that.
to be fair, this clip that I'm looking at right now, I've seen all over the internet a lot. So whatever this movie was, it must have been a big hit for him. A Merry
Yep.
Christmas Wish is what they're calling it. But it must have been a big hit because I've seen this clip everywhere, this exact image. But yeah, no, and with the Fox's impact, of course, Tucker is mainly the cause now. But let's not forget Papa Bear. They don't want to mention him, but Bill O'Reilly is the guy who built that company.
Yep.
Nevertheless, I'm happy to see them successful is all.
I wish he was still around at Fox, just because I would like to see him and Tucker get into it on some stuff. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, and I bet you Tucker would absolutely love it,
Yeah.
right? Because that's one of the reasons why Tucker is so loved because he's genuine, he's real,
Yes.
right? And that's why he's got all his success. He's not a plastic actor sitting in front of the news screen in front of you like all the rest of them, right? He's a
Right.
he's a dude, and that's the best word for Tucker, a dude.
He's a rich guy who likes to fly fish.
He is,
That's
and
who he is.
he does not hide it. He is
Nope.
born rich. He knows he's a silver spoon kid, but he's always been, even way back when he was doing the bow tie thing, right? He's always been that guy who pushed against the status quo, right?
Yep.
He's always been that
Yep.
guy. Well, you remember his bow tie years, right?
Oh, I do. And
Yeah.
one thing I'll give Tucker, and I'm not a huge Tucker fan or anything, but I do like some of his. I do catch it every now and again. One thing I'll give him: if he's actually wrong about something, he'll admit it.
Oh yeah,
He
quick.
doesn't. He doesn't
Yeah,
deflect or dissemble on it. He'll just say, "Nope, I was wrong. We got this wrong. I
yeah,
got this wrong. Whatever," and then move on.
yeah,
But for some people, that's not good enough. You see, if you've ever been wrong about anything ever, you must then be castigated for all time. You
yeah.
can never let it go. You can never, apology's not good enough. It must be who you are forever, your scarlet letter now.
Hmm.
This is who you are, that wrong thing you did, and you can never get out of it. That's what happens to poor Alex Jones whenever he tries to get near the mainstream because of Sandy Hook. It's a
Yeah,
scarlet
but
letter on him now.
it is, and those things do happen. And Sandy Hook, I haven't really looked into it too deeply. He probably just got a little bit zealous about it,
Yep.
because the simple fact of the matter, and yes, listen, YouTube, you hear me speaking, YouTube. There was some shady shit going on with Sandy Hook, without
Yeah.
question. Now, did
Yeah.
Alex go too far? Maybe he did. Maybe he did. I think
Hey,
but he's the type of guy that when he gets a bone, he's that type of dude. But there
yes.
was
He just
some
doesn't let go.
he does not. But there were some shady things with Sandy Hook.
Yep.
What was really going on behind the scenes? What was the deal with that? Don't know.
No idea.
Was it CNN? I guess was it them just simply trying to deflect and bring the tone down? Maybe it could be that simple. It could have been an innocent mistake or actions on CNN's part. Uh,
I'll give them one thing that I always thought was kind of silly. I bought into it for a second, but then I don't know, I guess I grew up or something. I don't know what to call it. When people would harp on the fact that one of the fathers, when he would give interviews, he'd get really sad, but before the interview he'd be laughing, like
yeah,
there was
we
that
have
that
video of
famous
it.
clip.
We have video
Yeah,
of it. Yeah,
that's not uncommon for somebody who went through something horrible. What it is he's compartmentalizing. So
maybe.
he's able to laugh over here because he's trying not to face what he's about to go do. He's completely shut off that emotion, and then as soon as he goes to do it, it comes on. That's actually very normal for somebody who's been through terrible trauma. It's
Possibly.
literally where the term trigger comes from. Like he actually was triggered, not these people who get mad at,
Yeah.
I don't know, dogs or whatever. They see a dog, they freak out because a dog bit them once. Like, chill out, bro. It's a dog.
Yeah.
They
But
bite sometimes.
yeah,
It's
no,
okay.
I understand that. And there's a lot of little things like that. It's like I said, I haven't studied it deeply. I don't really know. I'm not going to comment on it. But I do know there were some shady things. And
Yeah.
Alex seemingly went too far with it. Okay, fine. But it doesn't mean,
But
where there's smoke, there's fire, though, dude.
yes. And the only reason why I'm not even saying I disagree that there's something up there. The only reason why he that's been branded as a scarlet letter is it's because the one who stuck. And they needed something to discredit him as hard as they could because he was right 100%. I literally found a clip of it from 20 years ago, him talking about how the world government, New World Order, whatever you want to call it, will use and wants to use viruses and outbreaks and things to take everybody's rights in the world.
Yep.
And he'd been talking about that for decades. He was talking about Epstein 14, 15 years before it came out. Like this dude has his thumb on some information that they don't
Well,
actually want people to know.
right.
It's just the truth.
99% of the time he's correct. And it's because he does his due diligence, he and his crew. They
Yep.
actually research. They actually do their job, unlike the majority of newscasters. But Alex is dangerous, and that's why he has become just like Peterson. They can't have this kind of honest conversations.
Got to
Um,
be
uh,
branded.
yeah, they got to.
But it
Uh,
goes to the same thing we're talking about here. That's how I got on this. They can't allow any dissenting voice.
mhm,
They have to try and stifle it and shut it down,
that's
no
true.
matter what, whether that dissenting voice is worthy of a platform, as they call it, or not, is irrelevant because if they have an audience, they have an audience. And that's really all that matters. If they can garner an audience, at least it should be that all that matters, then that should be what matters. But they won't allow dissension because it's they're tyrants. They're authoritarians in their mind, in their heart. That's who they are. And they don't like anybody challenging their prescribed whatever it is. It could be
Right.
worldview, financial system, whatever. They don't like it. They can't, their ego is so fragile that they can't tolerate dissent.
Yeah, no, it's true. It is true. And Dave, Las Vegas shooting. The reason why they didn't cover that was because he was a progressive. They
Yeah.
can't have any focus on that. Uvalde was because the cops screwed up royally because of all this woke progressive culture. They were afraid, right? And that's not something a cop should ever be. At Parksdale, I don't know anything about it. So, but
Yeah, they were afraid of walking in there and accidentally shooting the wrong color kid. That's
mhm,
why Uvalde happened because
mhm.
they didn't want to be dragged for that. So because of their fear, like you said, they did nothing.
Yeah, and it's an
Inaction.
absolute debacle, and it's a
Yep.
travesty. But back to this. This all connects because these guys are standing in the face of it. GAC here.
Good old Gak.
And they're standing in the face of it, and they're being successful. So good on you, because they are
Go
trying to
Gak.
cancel GAC. They are
I'm
support the
Team
GAC.
Gak.
Anyway, let's move on
Begging you.
here.
I'm begging you to change that.
It's so bad. It's so bad. Anyway, moving on. Oh my God, the big
Oh,
story. The big
oh
story of the
boy.
day.
This is the story. This is the one I'm reveling, Chester. I am in my glory over this because when D&D nerds are in pain, I'm happy. I can't help it. I know it's terrible. It's just who I am. Leaked open game license agreement for Dungeons and Dragons reportedly forbids bigoted and discriminatory content on new and old products. Forbids it.
Mhm, mhm,
You're not allowed. You're not
mhm.
allowed to have evil orcs
Yeah.
in your official
Mhm.
documentation. And if you do, you're a bigot against
Yes,
the orc race.
that's right. Well, before I get into this, Thunder, I would say to you, both testicles, both. Okay. But anyway, here's the thing. Now, I just chose this article because the first one that popped up for me there, I could have chosen 1,000. Uh,
Yeah,
I go away for 2 weeks, and the world collapses. Nerddom
collapses.
collapses. What the hell?
All gone.
But this is a ridiculous situation because let me lay this out in a proper way, because I see a lot of the D&D channels are going off on it, and they're complaining, and everyone's canceling their D&D Beyond, and they're moving on to other systems. This was an absolute train wreck for WotC.
Yeah,
100%. They've messed up really bad. And the reason for it is because the players, the fans, are already pissed from all the nonsense they've been doing over the past few years. They're already frustrated, and this was just the straw that broke the camel's back, right?
right.
That's what it was, and there's this extreme exodus from WotC, and they tried to half-heartedly back it up, but they it's done. WotC is done, and therefore Hasbro is in big trouble because of this
Yep.
nonsense. And I want to point out some things that no one else is talking about, because I think it's important. Uh, because I'm sure you guys have seen stories, and you know the general outline of what happened. Uh, just to comment on that real quick, you cannot legally discredit something that's been around for 30 years and change it. You can't do that. Now, if you create a new product, as they are with one D&D, you can certainly put a new OGL or cancel the OGL. You can do whatever you want with some new product. Of course, you can, but you can't retroactively cancel a public contract that's been in place for 30 years. You can't do that. You're not going to win in court. Now, I know that their lawyers are saying, well, we can say that it's impacting our brand. They can make that argument, but it's too broad. It's just
Yeah.
too broad. And because if you read the original, OGL, which I have, and any of us gamers have read, I mean, it's not a lot of paper. It's very short and tight. It's clear. It's clear. So they can't do anything about retroactive anyway, and I don't know what they're thinking. Like I said, I think their lawyer said we can argue in court that it's impacting us, but they won't win that. Going forward with new one D&D or whatever they do, of course they can do something different. Of course they can, but the old stuff is already set in stone. So enough with that. Enough with that. I want to talk about why this happened, because no one's talking about that. Everyone's just talking about the
Yeah.
effect, and they're just abandoning WotC, which, fair enough. Fair enough. But let's take a look at it, because I think we need to look at the people that made the decision, right? Which is very, very unwise one. But let's take a look here. This is Wizards of the Coast, or Wizards as they like to call it, because there is another WotC, which is a Jesus loving Christian group, and that's why they use Wizards instead of WotC all the time, just so you know.
Mm.
But anyway, who are who we are, or who are we, or whatever, right? Legendary Games, lifelong adventures. Very nice. Okay, that's good. We create entertainment that inspires creativity, sparks passion, forges friendships, and fosters communities around the globe. Okay, all right, fine.
Fantastic.
Values, well, let's look at their values, though, Thunder.
Oh boy, here we
Values
go.
that define us. Let's
Here's
see.
the rabbit hole. We found it.
Be legendary. Mhm, mhm, I can click on these, by the way.
Uh-oh.
Build a well-rounded crew. What does that mean? Delve into dungeons. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Yeah. Don't split the party. Old D&D joke. Okay, because they're quirky and funny. You see. Yeah.
Gonna
It
riot.
takes a multiverse. What does that mean? What does that mean? Oh, that's there. Here it is. We didn't need all that. This is what we need. Go ahead.
Diversity, equity, and
And
inclusion. I
inclusion.
like that. I like that the memo went out to all these people.
Mhm,
It used to be diversity, inclusion, and equity. That
mhm,
was the order, and then
mhm.
somebody realized, oh, wait, that spells die. We might want to fix. See, they ungacked it. Is what I'm
They
saying. They
ungacked it.
ungacked
They
it.
did ungack
Yeah.
it. That's true. That is true. What we're working on, yeah, people don't give a shit. Oh, look at this crew. We got an Asian, we got a black, we got a lady, we got a questionable. Very nice. Uh,
Questionable.
uh, our studios, etc., etc. Where can you support? Look at all these wonderful things we support, because they're all about the gays. Nice. Because it go
But
you
but that person screenshot is of Game Nights, and that's a really good show.
It
So
is a great
that's
show, actually.
it is a great show.
It is
So
a great show. I do love Game Nights.
that questionable is Jimmy Wong. He's actually an actor. So
Yeah. No. I do love
okay.
Game Nights.
Yeah.
Have you watched the board game version too?
And I watched the Warhammer version, the
Oh, okay.
Warhammer 40K in 40 minutes.
Well, the board game version, interesting, has a bunch of old board gamers from Board Game Geek. But there is an interesting lady on that show. You know the sexy little redhead from True Blood?
You mean Deborah Ann Woll?
Yeah, she's on the board game version. She loves board games. It's like, what? She showed up a
Yeah.
few years ago. I was like, all right, rock on, baby. And she does love her board
Did
games.
you ever see her D&D show, Relics and Rarities? It's really good. She
It
runs
is
a
good.
really good show.
Yeah. No, she's one of us for damn sure. But I knew this would draw Ben in. I knew it. But here's the thing. Why did they make such a stupid decision, right? Now like I said, it's been brewing in the D&D community for a while because of they're just pushing dumb things like orcs are black, and it's like, where's your brain at, right?
Yep.
But it's been brewing, and it just came to a head. But I want to look at who did this stupidity, and I think it comes down to not this guy right here. His name is Chris Cox. I know I didn't name him. His mother did. Okay. But this guy, because the old CEO of Hasbro died last year, and they elected this guy. He's the new CEO of Hasbro, but he's recently applied to the job. Although I do have him making some comments with the person I'm about to talk about here. So I don't know how much he had to do with it. I'm sure he had some. But I don't think he's the focus. I do think she is the focus. About a year ago,
It usually is.
this lady took over as CEO of WotC. And we saw some things happen before, but we've seen a lot of really progressive stuff push in the past year under her watch. Now, one of the reasons why it didn't break the back of D&D was because it doesn't really matter. You could put a book out that's all about the gaze of Blackmore, right? Whatever. It doesn't matter because it's a D&D game. You could do whatever you want at your table. You can have anybody
Yep.
you want at your table. It doesn't matter in the greater scheme of things by the very nature of the game. So it didn't matter. But this whole thing and look at all the people who are upset about this OGL 1.1a, I think is the one that everyone's upset about. But look at the people. They're not making content. They're not creating books and selling them or doing Kickstarters. They're just normal people upset about something that affects them zero, right? But it's just because it's enough already. It's enough already. This is the lady behind this nonsense. She is from Ford. She was a big wig over at Ford, an executive over at Ford, and she came into WotC, and she's like, "You're not making every penny you could make." So I don't know that this lady's actually particularly woke, right? What she is a penny pinching executive, right? Is what
Mm.
my thinking on it, my feeling on it is. I don't know that she's super woke. She's happy to get in with whatever's going on with it, fine, but she's all about the money. And she was brought over, and all of this is coming out of her. Now, however, we do have this article here. This is from Kotaku, which I know, I apologize. D&D CEO thinks hobby is under monetized compared to video games. Of course it is. It's a completely different market. But she goes on
Yes.
here, and in this article, she is having a conversation with Mr. Cox himself.
Good old Cox.
So I would say he had some hand in it, but already, and this is what this article is from December of last year, before all this dropped. This is them priming the chamber, right, of what's to come. And this leak that came out, I don't even think was a leak. I think it was intentionally put out to see what would happen, but it just blew up in their face. So I just want to talk because I know everybody knows what's going on. Everyone knows what's happening in the absolute exodus from WotC, from all the gamers, but no one is talking about the people behind it, right? And these two, and I think particularly this lady. And like I said, I don't know that there's any wokeness about it. I think she's just a high-end Ford executive that came over, looked at the spreadsheets, and saw that they weren't making every penny they could, and she wanted to, micromanage it, right? But what she doesn't understand, and in all honesty, Mr. Cox here probably doesn't understand as well. If it wasn't for the OGL, what Ben, is Ben still here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here.
If it wasn't from the OGL from 30 years ago, right, Ben? It's good,
20.
at least 30 years ago.
22. It's been 22 years.
Okay. If it wasn't for
Yeah.
that OGL, D&D would not be where it is today.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely not. Because because Hasbro screwed up big time when they came out with 4th edition and trying to, turn D&D into a video game-esque slash, card game, trading card game thing. It was a big mistake, and Pathfinder roared ahead with Paizo.
Well, and also, when you talked about the OGL, remember when 4th edition came out, 4th edition wasn't under the OGL. It was under the GLS, which was
true.
very much more restrictive.
Yeah.
So there really wasn't a lot of 4th edition fan content. And that's
no, it's the 3rd edition.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, is that because the 4th edition didn't use the OGL and it was much more restricted to get fan content out there and third-party supplement content, that's part of the reason why 4th edition died, right? Because it didn't have community support for it, right?
That's
And they had to go back to OGL for 5th edition, and then you got a lot more fan content, and that helped give life to the product and give it a lot more longer legs than it would normally.
Yeah. No, the OGL was genius. I don't even know who the dude was or the lady who put the idea of the OGL out, but it was freaking genius because 3rd edition exploded, dude. Exploded. I can't, I don't even know how many books would you assume came out of the 3rd edition OGL, dude? 3,000? 5,000?
Far more than that. I mean, I have like 4 books under the OGL, right?
Sure.
So
I got a bunch too.
Yeah. So it's a huge amount, right? We're talking tens of thousands, if not more, right? If you look at Drive Through RPG, right,
yeah,
I think they have a hard time quantifying just how many books are published for sale online. And so there's a lot of things that I think you're hitting the nail on the head, right? Another contributing factor is, have you been following the WotC stuff that's going on with Magic the Gathering? How they're under fire for oversaturating the market with Magic?
Yeah, no, I have been. I understand WotC is greater than just D&D, but I have been paying attention to that. And of course,
but it's the same problem though, right? Is that they're trying to milk the cash cow. That they're trying to, and so by trying to, say like, because they used to just release like a new set every like quarter or something like that, right? And now they've been trying to push it with the last like 2 years, trying to push a new set like every month, and they're killing LGSs because they can't keep up with it, right? It's because they have to pre everything. It's a huge lift to have all that, and they're not guaranteed to sell all those because not every set is guaranteed to be a banger, right? And so they're oversaturating the market, and they're getting criticized by Wall Street for this, but it's the exact same symptom, right? Is that somewhere within the upper echelons of Hasbro, someone thinks that they're not. Well, yeah, probably. I'm totally fine with that. Yeah. But I agree. This has nothing to do with wokeness. It's people who say that that's a weird symptom to apply to this. It's frankly capitalism gone awry. Right?
That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
But no. And like I said, old Chris here, he had the job. He was the WotC CEO before. And I don't know how much he played a hand in this, to be honest with you. I really think it's this lady who came in a year ago. And the Magic the Gathering thing is a good point you're making, because just to kind of reiterate for the listeners here, Ben mentioned living card games, LCGs, and CCGs, collector card games. Now, LCG is a game where everything it needs in the box, and they'll have expansions, throughout time, right? The Star Wars LCG is a good example. It's unlike, say, a deck builder, which everything comes in the box and that's it, nothing more, right? And something like Dominion, even though people don't kind of put it as living card game, I'd say it is the way it worked out. I think it was the blueprint for it. Nevertheless, we're talking about CCG here, which is a collectible card game. And what he means by flooding the market or oversaturating the market is a collectible card game needs to be collectible.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean,
That
I
was
still
helpful,
have a
yeah.
couple of Black Lotus floating around here, right? How much could I get for one of those today, Ben?
Depending on the condition, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands.
hmm From a little collectible card game. These new packs, is there anything of any value you think 20 years from now?
It really depends, and that's part of the problem, right? Is
Yes.
that they're doing too many reprints. They did this horrible thing with so a good example, what you were mentioning, the Black Lotus. The Black Lotus is what's called is on what they call the reserve list, right? Meaning that these are cards that they declared we will never ever reprint these cards.
Yeah,
But
right.
then recently they did a thing, it's just like a secret lair or something like that, where they did reprint a bunch of these cards, Moxes, Lotuses, and stuff like that. But they don't have. Hold on, they don't have the usable backing, right? Because they've kept the same back of the card for the entirety of Magic, right? And so they said these are not actually valid cards; they're proxies, but they were charging thousands of dollars anyways for glorified proxies.
Oh,
You can print up a
jackasses.
proxy. Oh, it's horrible. And they didn't sell. They sold so little because who's going to want to pay $1,000 for a Black Lotus proxy when you can buy one online for $2? The whole idea was absolutely asinine. They were charging like $1,000 for a pack of these, Chad. Like,
Oh my
why?
God, dude.
It was insane. It's like,
Yeah.
so these are the decisions they're making that are driving everyone insane because they're saturating the market and they're just causing chaos, right? Because players are like, wait, you're reprinting these cards. Do we get to play with them? Well, no, they're on the reserve list. Okay, then why are you reprinting them? Like, what are these? You're just giving us proxies, but you're charging us $1,000 for them?
Just trying to
It makes no
suck
sense.
money out of you, dude. It's penny pinching. This lady, this Ford lady, this executive lady. And understand, it doesn't matter that she's a lady. It's not the point. This
No.
executive is 100% behind this thinking. She came in and she was going to fix their money problems. And she screwed them hard. And this is another little bitch I got about to you, Ben, mentioning how much those Black Lotuses and Moxies of mine are worth, and my wife still wants me to sell them. God damn it!
You should. You should at least get them graded. You should get them graded if you haven't.
That's wise.
They're
That's
in
wise.
plastic cases.
That's wise.
They should still be graded. They need to be officially graded.
I'm not doing that. I don't sell stuff. I collect. I'm a collector.
He's a hoarder.
Thank you. Anyway,
Yeah.
but you're the one who put that idea. You know how much those are worth? Thanks, Ben. Thanks.
Well, because they're worth a lot.
'Cause
I
they
mean,
are.
if they're in any good condition, you sell one, and kids' college is paid for it. So
Yeah, I've already paid for the
Yeah.
kids' college, so it's done.
you know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah. But
Done
yes,
and dusted.
but that is a
Here's
good
what I'll
point.
say. Here's my perspective on it, and this has been my perspective since day one on these sorts of things. I think, and I've always thought, that open licenses are the best possible solution to these sorts of problems. And the reason being is exactly what you guys just said. They had thousands of books and things created off of the back of their open license. That is free marketing for you. That builds your brand, deeply entrenches it into a subculture and into the culture in general. Everybody knows what D&D is. And there's no way you're going to do that yourself without spending literally billions of dollars to do it. That's the only way you're going to do it. It's how Coke did it. Coke spent a ridiculous amount of money way back in the day to make sure that everybody knows what a Coke is.
Oh yeah.
That is the most powerful thing you can have in business is brand recognition. Every major business spends billions on it every year to do it. And they were getting it basically for free because people liked their product and they made their own stuff with it.
Yeah, no,
That
it was a brilliant move.
is irreplaceable. And if you would threaten it, you're screwed. Because now your brand is weak. Now you've cheapened your whole brand. Whether it's a political thing where, oh, now it's just super capitalist, and now you're more anti-capitalist fans are disgusted by you, or it's, you know, the capitalists who are like, hey, why are you trying to rip me off? Doesn't matter what your political ideology is here. Everybody smells this as bullshit. Everybody smells it as a cash grab of some kind for down the road. They're going to try and monetize this.
And
everybody does. Everybody knows it.
Everybody
and they
knows.
have that right to do that, but they also have to face the consequences of what happens when you betray your brand.
That's
if you
true.
Build your brand on it's open and anyone can get in. You can't put gates up afterwards. You just can't. That's just the rules.
And the thing with it is, as Ben mentioned with the 4th edition, going forward, one D&D having a new OGL or not having an OGL at all, of course they can do whatever they want with that. Of course they can.
Yep.
We're talking about the original 3rd edition thing. But, you know, they're even going after Matt Mercer. I mean, he is, you know, and I'm going to throw a bone. I'm going to throw a bone, Ben. Ben, bones are being thrown. Okay.
I'm in eager anticipation of said bone.
Well, no, because, you know, with tabletop gaming, whether it be, you know, role playing or board gaming. Now, the golden age of board games started back in the early 90s, right? When I think it was whatever the original version of Asmodee was, brought Settlers of Catan to America, right? It was just, and I know if you don't know this stuff, it doesn't mean anything to you, but it was a monumental moment in that world, right? And since then, you know, board games are still in a golden age. They're just killing. And during that time, a lot of what Thundar and I would call progressive soy boys and girls have gotten into it, played at their little Starbucks, created their little community, created all kind of, and not just board games, but the new types of role-playing games that are much more narrative-driven rather than dice and combat-driven. And they have drawn literally millions of people into the hobby.
Yep.
They have. And you can't take that away. You can't. Because D&D, board gaming, sitting where it is in America and Europe is there because of these people more so than the Gary Gygax and Silvestri and all those kind of guys who Ben and I adore, right? Very, very, very important. And the thing is, there's room for everyone at the table. That's kind of the point. But amongst the groups of people who've gotten their claws into WotC who don't agree, there's not room for everyone at the table. You will not, as this headline is very useful. You will not do what we say you have been forbade to do.
That's right.
And it's like, well, no, I will do whatever the hell I want to do. Thank you very much. And other people who want to do differently can do that too, because there's room for everyone at the table. And that's the wonderful thing about it. But these jackasses over at WotC, like many other places, they will not have it. They don't believe in diversity. They don't believe in equity. They don't believe in any of it. It's my way or the highway. It's that simple. And this has led up to this bullshit of trying to pull things on people like Matt Mercer, who, my God, Ben, would you like to try and quantify what Matt Mercer has done for Dungeons and Dragons? Would you like to try?
So, I mean, so he's a really nice guy. He's a good actor. The entire Critical Role, it's all voice actors and stuff, right? And they run a pretty wild gambit, right? But what they have done, which basically Chet and I thought would never be done, is made role playing, you know, a very common household thing.
They did
by becoming, you know, they have a Prime series. If there's an Amazon Prime series based off of a D&D game, and it's just as wild and crude and crazy as, frankly, D&D has always been in my experience, right?
Yep. And they are woke as shit, by the way.
They are, but they're still crude. They're still wild and crude.
Yes, they are.
Right? You know, yeah. And so the important thing is, so I'm going to give sort of a different perspective on this. And I think the crux of the problem is, Chet, is that WotC is Sears. Now, what do I mean by that? Sears has had a huge problem and has been disappearing because they haven't been able to keep up with the changing times. right? And so they have been slowly more and more shriveling, selling off parts of themselves because nobody within the executive leadership, Sears used to be huge. Chet, when we were growing up, like Sears was the place. You went to Sears for like everything.
Yep.
They had a huge market share of everything, right?
Mhm.
Sears now is a shell of what it used to be, right?
Yeah.
And so part of the problem is that the market for tabletop role-playing games has drastically changed. For the longest time, WotC wouldn't do online PDFs. WotC wouldn't do online character creators.
Mhm.
WotC wouldn't do virtual tabletop support. They didn't know how to interact with a younger, more modern, more technologically equipped audience. You
Yeah.
know who did that, Chet? Paizo did that.
Paizo did that.
Paizo
Yeah.
Paizo put all of their rules online for free.
Mhm.
They make a crap ton of money, and all of their rules for all of their books are online for free. You go to AONPRD and you can read any class, any feat, any spell. It's all online completely for free, and they still make a crap ton of money
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
they did an online character creator. They did online virtual tabletop support. They did PDFs way early, right? And so the biggest problem WotC has had, they haven't figured out how to exist in the new market. And this is
Yep.
purely a knee-jerk reaction trying to catch up where Paizo has been for the last 10
It
years.
is. It is. That's a very
Well,
good
the other
point.
thing,
Yeah.
the other point, like which you're reinforcing what I was saying, the, the single most successful video game of all time is Minecraft. It sold the most units of any game ever, over 100 million have sold. It was completely and utterly free to play, and if you pirated it, once you actually started charging for it, Notch, that was fine. He didn't actually care. In fact, he would put up a little. He'd make it so there was a little thing in the corner that says this is a pirated copy, and if you want to buy it, go buy it or whatever. But other than that, he didn't care. And he said, "Why would I care? It's free marketing, right? Everybody, if you play my game and you like it, you're more likely to buy it than if you never play it at all. So go ahead. It's not a big deal." And because of that, Microsoft eventually bought him out and put it, basically made it part of Windows and made it the biggest, most successful video game of all time. My point is, if you just trust your product and trust your audience, which these guys clearly don't do, you can make a singular brand or a simple brand become quite literally the most profitable thing ever made in video games or in board games. They could do the same thing, but because they're so afraid of one, piracy, obviously, if they won't put out PDFs, and two, just their version of what it should be, their view of what this is. They're so afraid of losing that they're going to end up losing it anyway. Just like Sears, it's a perfect example. They didn't adapt. I was in their industry for a very long time. Did not only did they not adapt, they refused to adapt.
Yeah.
And it put them right where they're at.
Yeah. No, these are valid points. And back in the day, there were these guys. One name was Gary, another guy was named Dave, and then there was a Greenwood fella. And they would go around and they'd communicate with people about the little game they put together. They created this convention. They just called it the General Convention. Actually, it wasn't their creation initially. I think it was a knitting and yarning convention. So I'm not joking, right? But it's called Gen Con, right?
Yep.
And they got out there and the community grew. They came out with a book from Palladium. Palladium got involved with it, right? Not even D&D, right? They created a little thing called the RPGA, right? They built this. This is way before any of these little devices we have existed. Right? This is back when you had to remember phone numbers, right? That were mounted on the wall, right? And they created this incredible community, and it grew and grew and grew and grew. And then WotC, Hasbro, WotC particularly after, I'm not going to go through the whole history of the buying and everything like that of TSR. However, they went executive, they went corporate, right? And what did Paizo do? Paizo wasn't corporate. Paizo was all about the community, carrying on what Gygax and Arnson and Greenwood did, right? And the other fellows. I can never remember those two guys that made Mystara. Why can I never remember their name? God damn it. But anyway, it was all about community. And Paizo was all about community, still are. And the thing with it is they took the OGL, Paizo in particular. We're talking about third edition OGL. And not only did they, feed off of that and make themselves out of necessity, a very gigantic part of the gaming community, which is what's pissing these executives off. They also expanded upon the game and made it, I don't know, better.
Yeah.
So
I think better is fair. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I wasn't a big fan of their new edition of rules they just came out with here a year or so ago, but however, they get it. These WotC jokes don't get it. However, keep in mind we're talking about Matt Mercer here, right? Because whether you like him or not, it doesn't matter whether you like him or not. His impact is incredibly huge. But keep in mind this little fella right here, Mr. Cox. Once again, didn't name him. Mom did. Okay. He was the guy in charge. And you know what he did, which is confusing to me with old Cynthia here taking over last year and doing all the nonsense she's done. He actually gave Mercer a freaking book. Right? The world that his critical role is in, and all his actor friends that come in and play, and it can be a lot of fun, even though they get a little bit too woke for my liking from time to time. In general, it's fine though, and like I said, he deserves all the credit he gets, Mercer. But they actually took the Critical Role world, created a supplement that you can buy. You can actually buy from frickin' WotC Matt Mercer's world. You can literally buy it. And so what in the hell is this lady thinking? You already quantified Matt Mercer. And then she had phone calls and conversations. Matt is 100% off. He's done with D&D. He's 100% done. And it's such a stupid move because here's the thing. 5.0 is not the greatest system. I still say second or third edition are really better. But what 5.0 or fifth edition really is a great introduction to tabletop role playing, particularly D&D type of thing. It's not a great system though. If you want a more diverse and impactful system, go play third edition or even second edition with all the kits and stuff. But the big thing that's killing me with this lady and her decisions is you realize you have Cortex rolling around. You have the Cypher system rolling around. Paizo is still kicking. You have some big competitors that do not use your OGL, particularly Cortex and Cypher, those two. And they are very open about you using it and creating any system you want. Oh, our boy, Monty Cook, he's a smart little fella, especially and also with Margaret Weiss and her Cortex system. They are really smart about, hey, here's a system. Why don't you put some campaigns on it? And people have. Those things are banging. They're more popular than they've ever been. A lot of people are already shifting to it. And then you're going to do this, and just people go like, fine, I'll go find something else, and it's right there waiting. And even stuff like the index card playing system. What's that dude who does that, Ben? What's that guy? He's been incredibly successful the past few years because of the nonsense from these idiots.
It goes worse than that, right? Because the longest time they haven't had a good online character creation system, right?
Oh,
so
no.
D&D Beyond did it. D&D Beyond, a third party, they licensed it. And so they were like, well, crap, we can't, makes us look bad that we can't get our own shit together. So they bought D&D Beyond, right? D&D Beyond is a subscription-based service. So they're fresh off of buying that. Like literally just, I think in like the last 6 months or something, they bought D&D Beyond. So they still need to recover some. They're bleeding subscriptions. Tens of thousands of people are canceling their subscriptions. And it's no longer a viable, profitable purchase for them. And they literally have no one to blame but themselves, right?
Yeah.
That because of their own stupidity, because of their own greediness, there's a ton of people who are voting with their wallets and they're walking away from their D&D Beyond subscriptions, right? And then they're basically pissing on all community good, right? And so you're right. This has given an opportunity for all of their competitors, and they are hungry.
Oh yeah.
Paizo is probably the most well poised, which, like you said, there's
I'd say
others out
so.
there, and they will grow out of the corpse that is WotC. I mean, basically, it'll always be like Band-Aid, right? We'll probably always refer to D&D just in the terms of like role playing, but D&D as we know it could go away, right? There's no guarantee that anyone's going to buy their books, right? And so what do they have left if they lose all that? Nothing, right? And so, and again, they exist because the community supports them. So the community supports Paizo very well. That's how they can have all of their rules online for free for consumption, right? They do just fine with online publishing, PDF publishing, and even physical publishing, right? So, but they also do them because people are really upset about losing the RPGA, so they made the Pathfinder Society. They picked up the pieces that WotC left on the ground and they polished it up and made it better, right? So WotC is like in a really bad position here because they're basically leaving themselves open to all of their like you just said, all of their competition could easily take advantage of this and could replace them. And they could find themselves on the outs real fast, real easy.
Well, just like what happened with 4th edition, right?
It's kind of like what happened in gaming. So, we had old Gamergate all those years ago. Whether you liked Gamergate or you didn't is irrelevant. What happened after it was a replacement. A lot of companies popped up as independents and made amazing games because they were tired of the nonsense in the mainstream. That is exactly what's going to happen here. And it's already happened. Like you guys said, there's a bunch of companies out there. But if they don't correct course now and get their shit together and get their head right, because that's really what it is. Their head's not in the right place. Get your head right. They may do exactly what you said, Ben. They may kill their whole brand. They might have shot themselves so hard in the foot that they lose the entire leg.
I think they have, right?
And the problem is this. I've seen this happen before in like video game companies and stuff. So obviously, the best example recently is CD Projekt Red. They had all of the goodwill, all of it. They were the company everybody had their hopes on of a mainstream mega, AAA studio that was always gonna deliver for everybody. They were gonna kill it. Everything was gonna be all right. They were gonna save the gaming industry, and then they released Cyberpunk because of executives who were greedy and didn't want to wait anymore.
Yeah.
And it destroyed all that goodwill, and they became a literal meme. And the internet never forgets, ever.
It's the same with BioWare, right? BioWare.
Oh my god! Now you're just trying to piss me off.
Well, I mean, but this is a tale as old as time, right?
Yeah,
and so,
unfortunately,
and I think the problem that they had was a huge amount of hubris. That they were like, well, we're D&D, we can never not exist, right? Because we defined role playing since the beginning, and the reality is that's just not true. There is a ton of games out there with a very long history. You mentioned Palladium Games, right? Rifts is still popular with Savage Land.
Yeah.
World of Darkness is still incredibly popular. GURPS, Traveler, Pathfinder. Like, there's a ton of stuff out there. The market has never been more rich than it is now, right?
No, that's true.
So, and it's frankly the worst time for them to pull this kind of stuff because, like I said, everyone's thirsty to be the next king of the mountain. And there's more than a few companies well positioned to do that. And they will find themselves in be obsolete, right? And that's
what's funny about the obsolescence is they, like you said, they've done it to themselves. But the reason why in this space, just like my original point that I forgot, the reason why in like video games it's so stupid is because your audience are also your creators. These people love this thing, and they love it enough to make their own. And they're smart enough to do it because it's typically one that requires at least some level of intelligence to play. So these people, you have two different groups of people who play these sorts of games, if I could classify them simply. You have your hardcore want-to-win guys, your tryhards, and your casuals. You piss the tryhards off enough, they're just going to replace you. They're going to replace you because they're, at their heart, a lot of them, most of them, have a capitalist heart. And they're like, all right, well, screw you. You won't give me what I want, so I'm going to go make what I want. Or I'm going to go find somebody else who will make what I want, and then I'll have what I want, and you'll just wither and die. That is how hardcore these people are, and you see it if you ever go into like video game multiplayer lobbies or whatever. You run into these type of people who are stupid hardcore. You can see them on Twitch all the time streaming. These people who live for the thrill of destroying somebody else. And if you give them the opportunity for that to be you in business, some of them are going to take it. And that's exactly what happened in the video game industry with Gamergate. I always say Gamergate won, not because Gamergate actually won, but because the market corrected. They helped force the market into correction, and now you can find any kind of games. I remember before Gamergate, it was really hard to find strategy games. Strategy games were rare. Now they're everywhere. There are a plethora of them. And Steam obviously was a big platform for that too, big catapulted that too. But my point is, you can't mess around with these types of audiences because you have a lot of super autists who will see an opportunity and seize it, and that'll just put you out of business. BioWare is a great example. BioWare's been replaced. There's about 5 different companies who make BioWare games as good, if not better, than BioWare did now. And that's just what happens. If they get conceited, they get ungrateful to their audience, and they forget themselves. They got all this money, and they're like dragons sitting on their hoard, and they forget themselves. And then eventually, I'm going to go real nerdy with it. Eventually, that adventurer shows up, cuts the head off that sumbitch, and takes all his gold.
Yep.
That's where
true.
we're at.
And the thing is I was hearing not too long ago, Ben, that that Hasbro was looking to sell WotC anyway. I kind of wonder
Yep.
how that'll work out now. But one thing that's surprising to me, because we know that they actually had made a phone call to Matt Mercer, right? And they pissed him off. And he was one of those. He's the biggest dude in the industry as far as YouTubing and streaming and stuff. There's no one bigger. And he was a guy he and his crew were people who are willing to support the wokeness, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? They were all on board with that. And so it's weird to, literally, destroy a relationship with people who are supporting what you're doing. But keep this in mind that this is an important one. Even Geek and Sundry is moving on from D&D. Geek
Yep.
and Sundry, the woke of the woke, Will fucking Wheaton. That's
Shut
how
up,
bad
Wesley.
this is.
Every time.
Well,
Every time
no, I
someone
mean, like,
mentions Will, that's what I immediately think of is shut up, Wesley.
That's true. But I'm just saying,
The-
Geek and Sundry has moved on. My God, dude.
Well, what's the second biggest like live play, right, for D&D? It's going to probably be Dimension 20, right? And again, under your parameters, they're another hyper woke crew, but they do a good show, and that's another that's a group of comedians, not actors, right?
Sure, but
but
I give them
it's-
credit because they brought a lot of people into the community, dude. I do give them
and
credit.
and they do a fun show. Like the show is legit fun, right? And it's a lot of laughs, and it's crude sometimes and stuff like that. But like they don't like this either, and they're going to probably move on as well, right? Because they've sampled other games, but they've been largely 5e centric for a long time, and they're going to probably move on and do something else as well, right? So like you basically pissed away the two largest like vectors you have for public consumption, right?
Yeah.
So there's no end game here. There's no like that's the thing is like I think the more interesting question out of all this is there a path to recovery from this? And I don't think there is.
No.
I think they showed their hands. Did you see that press release they did where they were like, well, this was just intended for feedback anyways, and we shouldn't say that, players won and we lost. We all won, didn't we, guys? And it's like,
no, and it wasn't even worded that nicely. You niced it up. It was arrogant.
Yeah.
It was arrogant.
Yeah.
That response was the worst thing at the worst time. And of course, Comic Book Bob made a comment earlier here in the stream in regards to the original leaked, big, huge air quotes, leaked document that talked about us, the consumers, as being obstacles, right? But yeah, that statement, which they delayed for days, coming out, and it was extremely arrogant, and it was 100% wrong-footed. And I don't know who the hell is making the decisions. Is it solely this lady? Is it solely her? I don't think so, because we know that a lot of these companies are having, I don't know, this whatever this modern extended HR is, that take care of marketing and stuff as well. So
Hmm.
did she authorize this? The heat was heavy, so you would think she did. You would think that old Chris Cox here must have been involved too, because it's the absolute fallout from this is enormous. Aren't you a little bit surprised? I mean, how big? I mean, everybody is pissed and walking away. They just simply wash their hands of Watsy, dude. It's huge.
It is, and I mean it's entirely tone deaf, right? So I wouldn't say that it's her and her alone. It has to be a combination of certain number of members of the
It must
executive
be.
board.
Yeah.
It has, yeah, a certain. I think it has more probably to do with the Hasbro board than just the WotC board, right? Because remember, they still take orders, marching orders from from Hasbro, right? They're still a child organization of a larger company, right? And so and then so like how much does the Hasbro board really understand about the D&D community at large, right? I
Right.
just love the idea that there's this huge like board meeting at Hasbro and someone's having to explain the history of the OGL and all this stuff to a bunch of old people with ties and stuff who have no clue how any of this stuff works, right?
Yeah,
And
and that's a
so
problem. It is a problem.
right.
Well, it is a
And
problem, but within that problem, there's a simple solution. Hasbro, I know for a fact, is still effectively owned by the same family that founded it. Yes, it's a publicly traded company, but they hold pretty much all the stock. And if you can get to one of them, if enough noise is made that they gets their attention, well, that's all you need. If they're
that's fair.
upset enough, they can correct it by themselves. If they can literally Vince McMahon that shit and just is put themselves wherever they need to be to make the decisions they need to do because
Yeah.
they own it. They have all the power. Uh, they let other people manage it because they don't want to. And I can't remember the name of the family. It's Haas something. It's some Norwegian, I think, name or something. But um, they have all the power at the end of the day if they want it. They've obviously let the board and everybody handle it for years. But if you could make enough noise to get whoever it is that is the head of that family that has the actual stock involved, which very well this could happen if this damages them enough. Because not just Wizards of the Coast brand is getting hurt here, Hasbro's is too. Don't get it twisted. Because like Ben said, I think enough people are smart enough to realize or maybe stress. One of you said, um, they're owned, right? They got a master. They're little bro, and they got a big bro,
Hmm.
and big bro. I bet you big bro's not happy about all this noise. I bet you Hasbro has been
Probably
around a
not.
long time, and they're not a stupid company. I used to work with them and deal with them back in my day. They're not dumb. They're very smart, and they're usually, until very recently, very smartly ran. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a massive course correction, not just from Wizards of the Coast, and as well, but the entire company. If it gets loud enough, if it keeps being
Mhm.
this detrimental, it's going to hurt them,
Well, it
and they're
already
going to
is.
react. Yeah.
And there is a wild Grimlock in the chat, by the way. But I do want to kind of point out a little bit more what Ben had just said, which I think is very important. This lady right here, having her as a Hasbro CEO, fine, is probably a good idea. That kind of executive. But what you need in charge of WotC, D&D, Pokemon, all that kind of stuff they own, is you need a gamer-minded person. You need someone who, you can have a big executive above everything, but when you come to the smaller conglomerates, as you were mentioning, you need someone who has their finger on the pulse of it, someone who knows about it, someone who's, in it. We need a gamer in charge of WotC. That's what you need. Now they can have oversight from a pure executive like Gwyneth here or Cynthia, sorry. Sure, but you need that kind of person in charge or it's going to go sideways. And we see this happening all across the board with everything, right? Fantasy Flight has, I know this is a little diversion, but a segue. But no, that's not tangent. There's the word. But Fantasy Flight for those of you who recall, way back in the day, Ben, when we were playing, we used some of their supplements because Fantasy Flight was a book company. And how did they start? Oh, OGL, right? They were making third edition 3.5 stuff off of the OGL license, and they got bigger and bigger to where they started making board games, and then they started getting licenses, and they became one of the big 5 board gaming groups where they don't even make many books anymore. It's mainly board games now. However, they were just chugging right along, and then they got corporate, and they decided to get on this trend of wokeness, and they're losing players at a ridiculous number. A perfect example, and it ties in beautifully because Fantasy Flight was 100% a creation of the OGL, and look how big they became, Ben.
Yeah, they got huge, right? And well, like everyone at the time, like the OGL propped up a ton of people. Cold Gold Press, Paizo,
Oh, yeah.
so many people, right? AEG got their start with using the OGL. Ronin. Yeah. I mean, you talk about it, the OGL, but see, that was part of what Wizards was like butthurt about, is that they were like, well, we're tired of subsidizing our competition, right? And it's like, you don't. The problem is you guys have never really used your own property well, right? It's not that you're subsidizing your competition. Your competition is using your stuff better than you guys have figured out how to use it, right? That's the whole problem with, optimizing the use of like Kickstarter or the online, virtual tabletops or PDFs and stuff like that. It's not that you've subsidized them. It's that because these are newer companies, they are newer publishers. They have, frankly, a younger crowd. They're not ruled by an executive board that's just trying to bleed them for as much money. They're more hungry in their creation. They thought scrappier, and they thought wiser and more forward thinking than Wizards did. Right. That's the crux of all this stuff.
Yeah, and the thing that's killing me too, that's really irritating me, is the fact that fourth edition absolutely destroyed Dungeons and Dragons. Not WotC. WotC had Magic and Pokemon and all that stuff, Avalon Hill, all those things going on. But D&D fourth edition destroyed it for the reasons you said, right? And the reasons it was too much of a departure. However, Paizo came on and they dominated those years. They dominated it with their Pathfinder system, right? D&D was dead, dude. It was dead. What the 5th edition came out, which a lot of us were involved in the beta testing of that. I know we were, right? And but was that what brought it back? That outreach? No. Frickin' Matt Mercer made 5th edition what it is today and put them on top again.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's
absolutely
like, you bastards.
Yeah. I mean, without the existence of Critical Role, would 5th edition have anywhere near the saturation that it has right now?
No way.
We know Pathfinder would, because they did a lot of ingress to do that on their own. They don't have a ton of like online playthroughs, right? So pretty much Pathfinder would still be what it is today, right? But 5th edition, would it?
No, because
probably not.
Pathfinder dominated the market for that entire time, right? They dominated the market. It was Matt Mercer, Geek and Sundry. They were first. Let's give them credit, even though they're fucking insufferable. But those people are what made 5th edition. That they're the ones who did it. And then you're going to turn around and slap in the face. You actually make a phone call to Matt Mercer. You call him and piss him off where he makes a public online statement. Jesus. It's just so fucking insufferable, dude. I cannot believe it. That these people, free of charge, made your company. Oh my God, dude. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm irritated.
It's kind of like our boys, everybody's favorite at Bethesda, about 6 years or so ago, when they tried to get rid of mods for Skyrim that they didn't control. They wanted to monetize the mods, which they eventually did, but they wanted to make it so you could only get mods from their marketplace, from their whatever they call it, their shop. And everybody was like, "No, fuck you. That's stupid. First of all, it's stupid because the only reason people play your games for 10 years or longer is because of the mods. And second of all, no. How about no is the answer to that. And they backed off, and then eventually they came up with basically like a compromise where they could still have their marketplace, but you could still release mods, and everybody was happy. They got their paid mods, and the people who make the mods actually got paid by it too. And then you could still get free mods if you wanted them. Uh, it's kind of the same thing. You're shooting yourself in the foot, chasing dollars that aren't yours. You do not have the right to the money here, regardless of whether you think you do or not, regardless of whether it's in your name or not. You allowed it. You opened it. Literally, it's called open. You opened the door. You don't get to close it just because you're mad that a whole lot of people came through it and you didn't get paid for it. That's not how it works. And I think you're right, Chester. I think if this does, and it probably will, go before some sort of arbitration, they're going to lose their ass for it. They're going to get in trouble
Yeah,
for it.
I
You
understand the
can't just
argument they're
revoke.
trying to make, but they're wrong.
You can't just revoke a contract 30 years, 40 years, whatever it is later, just cause. You just can't do that. That's not how contracts work.
Right.
Well, the really interesting thing, did you watch the Legal Eagle video on this where he was
Yeah, I did.
reviewing and he was like, I don't really even think the OGLs need it, right? You know, because there's the concept of copyright and patents, right? And so the problem is that you can copyright the name like Leomund's, Magical Chest or something like that, right? But the mechanics of how D&D works, you can't copyright that, right? Those are
Right.
would have to be patented, and getting a patent is so much harder. And so he did a really good deep dive where he was talking about this stuff, and he was like, I don't even think the OGLs need it.
Right,
Like you
because
can always
the OGL protects those things anyway.
right
Name things, yeah.
So I think it really depends on what the community does further, and frankly, what Wizards does further, right? But I really think that the damage has been done, that there's no going back.
No.
We already know that a bunch of the other gaming companies are going to work together to create their own open gaming system, right? And that
Paizo is
smart.
Yeah.
Well, they're working with other people.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Well, they're
tell them
working
about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's called ORC, right? The Open System Reference something. I forget the whole name of it, but short name is ORC. They're working on it with other companies, right? And what they're designing it to be is they said it's going to be in perpetuity. Like it's not going to have the same like little trick word language. Like this is going to be forever, and they're treating it like open source coding. Right, like the basics of like Linux are open for anyone to make. So that's why you have like Red Hat, and that's why you have Windows or Ubuntu, right? Like all of that stuff is like just open for anyone to use. They actively stated, they put in their statement, they said we're going to treat this as a community thing. No one company will own it. We're going to work with other companies to create it, but no one company will own it, and it's going to operate like open source code. Right.
Yeah.
And if that takes off, or if that becomes real popular, that will be the death of Wizards. That will be the death of Dungeons and Dragons, and they will be the death of Wizards.
Yeah. And once again, Paizo embracing the community. Once again.
1,000%.
And I felt real bad for them when way back I even sent a letter, which I don't do. But when they decided to take their magazines digital, right? And because that's how Paizo become big. They were basically kind of like Amazon was way back in the day, a bookseller, right? And Paizo is a place where you could go buy, gaming stuff, gaming books and things. And they made a deal with WotC to print and publish and print the Dragon Magazine and Dungeon Magazine, which they did for a very long time.
I remember that. That was such good stuff, and they couldn't do it anymore with the Switch 4th edition.
That's right.
And it was brutal.
They pulled it out from under them, a big money maker. And then they went to 4th edition, and Paizo just said, well, screw it. We're publishing anyway. We might as well just do our own thing. Thus Pathfinder. So I've been a supporter of Paizo for a long time. I used to buy my products exclusively from them. It's there you go. But we've been, we could keep continuing hacking on this and all the nonsense that they've done, attacking fans, attacking ideas and concepts. But that is minuscule in comparison to them trying to take the freedom of creativity away from the community, especially seeing as D&D, the inception, is all about creativity. Every time you sit at that table, you're creating a new world. That is the whole fucking point, you dumbasses.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
If it gets bad enough, you could see, like you said, because I think you had said that they were thinking about selling Wizards of the Coast anyway.
Years ago, yeah.
That there have been rumors of that for years, because they're underperforming. They don't like how they're performing, and I could see that happening. I don't think D&D the brand is going to go anywhere because it's not the brand really that's the
Well,
problem.
it's
It's the people who own it.
iconic, isn't it?
Yeah. So most likely, if this gets bad enough, they'll just have to sell it off,
Yeah.
right? They would just
And maybe
sell.
that's
They would
what
just piecemeal it out.
maybe Paizo will buy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's
Because
what
I don't.
exactly
It's
what's
one of
needed.
those things. Like you said, the right word. It's iconic. It's like Batman. It's
It
not going
is.
anywhere.
It is.
Even
It
if
is.
DC dies tomorrow, someone's buying the rights to Batman. Guaranteed.
Mhm.
100%. Probably Disney, unfortunately, but somebody's gonna buy it.
Yeah.
And make Batman stuff because it's too much money. It's billions of dollars right there in that brand. So there's no way. It's like walking past a big old giant stack of gold bullion that says take it, it's free, and you don't take any. Why wouldn't you? It's right there. Just go take some.
Yeah. No, it's true. But boy, it did it blow up quick though, Ben. It just blew up. What would you like to try to? Would you like to try to, surmise why it just blew up so hardcore like it did? Because, like I said earlier, the vast majority of people complaining are not creating any content that would be affected by this at all, right? I'm not affected by that at all, right?
I mean, a lot of the people I saw complaining about it would have if they third party independent publishers, right? I knew a lot of people at Cold Gold Press and at Paizo. I knew a lot of
Oh,
people
those
who were
guys, sure,
complaining.
yeah,
Yeah. And also online community, because remember, this also was affecting the concept of like doing Kickstarters or possibly even doing live streams. So
that's right.
it had a really wide effect, and so I think there was a lot of people complaining who weren't directly impacted, but I think they were complaining because they were worried about modes that they consume that would have been affected, like Critical Role, like Dimension 20, like people who enjoy some of the third-party publishing and stuff like that. And so I think there were a lot of people who were directly affected. I mean, I was working with my publishing partner. Him and I were talking about what changes would we have to make to our books on DriveThru RPG.
Right.
A portion of the novel I'm writing, could fall under OGL stuff. Now I've been working on moving or rewording that stuff, right? But I was worried that I was going to have to redo major parts of my novel, right, because of that. So,
Mhm.
so I definitely know a lot of people who were affected who were very loud about it, but I think there was a lot of people who were loud because they consume media that would have been impacted.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And but I also think it has a lot to do with the little peppering we've seen over the years. Disrespecting Gary Gygax at Gen Con, not allowing his son in, trying to threaten lawsuits against him with his new version of TSR. And keep in mind, Gary Gygax, the creator of Dungeons and Dragons, also the creator of Gen Con, right? That's his thing, and WotC owns it. Don't forget that, right? But all these little things, the debacle with orcs and the whole thing with, racism being thrown around left and right over what, it's just this constant peppering of this progressive nonsense. I think just added into it, and then the just audacity of it, because the simple fact of the matter is, this is a truthful statement. When you sit down at a table and you're going to play a role playing game, particularly not a board game, but a role playing game, there's a certain consensus at the table of what is okay and what is not, right? What is off color, right? This is a general consensus, and it depends on who's sitting at your table, right? And it's the same thing with, I'll swear every now and then over here, or be vulgar, or make some dirty joke. But when I'm on the Drawn and Quartered, I still will do that, but I'll do it in a more subtle thing because I'm surrounded by a bunch of artist ladies. So
Mm.
it pulls me back because I'm not gonna. Why should I be rude and disrespectful to these people who are giving time to come over and be involved in our community? Why would I ever do that? People don't act like that, dude. Because if you have a person at the table who is being radically racist or vulgar or sexist or dark and dirty or what have you, and the table in general doesn't appreciate it, you know what happens? They don't sit at the table very long. This is something that has always been there, Ben.
Yeah, I've seen people have to get kicked out for
Hell yeah.
being,
I've
a
kicked people
little.
out.
Yeah, and so the concept that Chet's talking about is the infamous session zero,
Yep.
where with any group you have a session zero, and you kind of feel out the group, you feel out the campaign, and you feel out the tone, and that's where you start kind of really and things can arise after session zero, but it's really session zero where you're like, what type of a game are we playing? What is the overall tone of it? What are we going for,
Hmm.
right? And that's a really important aspect of the gaming culture is having that session zero to establish that. Now, if you're in a group that's been going, like my group doesn't do a session zero anymore because we've just been gaming together for years and years and years and years,
Sure.
and like we really don't need to have to. But it is important for newer groups who you're playing with people you're not familiar with. You're trying to get a feel for the lay of the land of the group and stuff like that. So, but no, I think you're right. Is that there is a certain amount of like self-correcting of some of these things.
Hmm.
But that's been just kind of built into the mechanics of the system for
Was
eons,
a
right?
social endeavor, right?
Right. I definitely remember when I was in the RPGA, one of the players, he was a little on the racist side. And we
Hmm.
pulled him aside and had a couple conversations with him, and he was still making terribly inappropriate comments, and he had to get kicked out because he was just being a jerk to people at the table, and it was a community effort that we were like, hey, we care about people in community, and he is making comments that are making a lot of people uncomfortable, and it took care of itself.
Yeah, no, and that's my
Right.
point. Yeah, exactly. It takes care of itself. This is nothing new. These concepts are not new. And if you don't like we'll say you're with a group that you think is really soft, then go find another group. That's what happens, right? Now, I was involved with the RPGA as well. I did a lot of stuff with them in Hawaii. I was one of their forget what they called it, but I was responsible for community activities. And I actually wrote some campaigns. I actually made some money off of my Halfling Helping Hand campaign, because in that you could write for the RPGA a module, and I think what did it cost, like $100?
Usually
No,
I thought it was, yeah, it was a little bit. I had my name on a few from like 20 years ago as well, right?
yeah. No, a
And
lot of us did.
it was,
We got a hundred
yeah,
bucks. We got
yeah,
$100.
something
That's
like
what it
that,
was.
something like that, yeah. Mhm.
But it's not a lot of money, but it was fun. And once again, it's part of being in a community, right? Now, RPGA setting, or what did they change that to, Ben? What's their new term for the RPGA? What do they call that?
It's the Adventurers Guild or
Adventurers
something like
Guild.
that.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah.
But when you're dealing with that kind of thing, and you're going to a Saturday, it's in essence a mini convention in your local area, is what it is. And you get a bunch of people sitting down. It's great fun. You get little official pieces of paper for certificates if you were voted best in the group for that day, or if you get magic items. It's fun. It's fun. And with the RPGA, particularly my character, Sir Olin Thornhaven, by the way, Cavalier from third edition. I could take him anywhere in the world and sit down because I had my license, I had everything was official. It was neat. But when you're in that kind of environment, you have to be on good behavior. And I don't need anyone from WotC to tell me so. It's simple human social interaction. Because, like you said, with your trouble with that guy, I've seen in Hawaii when I was doing, because that's where I got involved. Of course, I was with Palladium forever, but in Hawaii, there were a few people who kicked out because of dumb shit, right? Because the great thing about that kind of community is, one thing it's a little bit different than tabletop gaming than say video gaming. There's a lot more females involved with tabletop gaming than there are video gaming. a lot more, particularly when you go into the board gaming side of it, right? It's just because it's more family oriented. So when I used to have those RPG Saturday events we do, um, I'd say 40% of the people sitting down were women. Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely, from a gender perspective, diversified the hobby a lot, and that was really good too.
It was, sure. More the merrier. More fun, different perspectives.
Yeah,
I run a game
totally.
on this channel every week. I've been running for years here, and I have had many women in it. So it's a little different. Video games are, especially when we're talking about real video games, not mobile Candy Crush crap. Actual video games. It's very male dominated. Fair enough. It is what it is. But tabletop stuff is not that way. And when you're sitting in a group, if it's a bunch of guys, you could be off color and vulgar, no problem. But when you have other people sitting there, you back yourself up. And I don't need freaking Watsy to tell me how I'm supposed to act. I'm an adult. I know how to do what I'm supposed to do socially, and it's just irritating. And then when you put this on top of it, of them basically trying to create an OGL that is going, in essence, Ben, they were threatening to sue people if they did like a live stream on YouTube or something like that, and they said something that they don't like. It's way beyond the pale, dude.
Well, not just that, within the OGL 1.1, they were saying that if I create something under the new OGL, they get to use it as well within their own publications, right? So if I create a really cool class that, a custom class that doesn't exist within the product, and I create it using their rule set and I release it on the OGL 1.1, they could include that class in some of their books, right? As a, under the OGL 1.1. So it's like everything we create, we own, and everything you create, we own, right? And that was another hugely egregious part of it that a lot of the independent creators were very upset about, because there are a lot of people who create interesting things that they want to maintain their rights over, that the Wizards doesn't get to declare. Yeah, and these are things that are, a lot of them are for free, right, already on DriveThruRPG, but they didn't like the fact that Wizards might try to release it themselves and try and make money off of their creations.
Right. Yeah, no, it is nonsense. And I shall quote Captain Picard's nemesis, pure fucking hubris.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. But anyway, I do need to go. I got to get to work. My time is up. However, wow, dude. Wow. I'm gone for 2 weeks and I come back and look what happened to the world. Our world.
You ruined the whole world,
They
Chester. Good
ruined
job.
it.
Good job.
It's my fault. But here's the thing. If you want to play fantasy stuff, go to Paizo. If you want to do other stuff,
Paizo!
go to Monty Cook or Margaret Weiss's stuff, Cortex or Cypher. They're great systems. I've run them here on the channel if you want to watch some videos to see how those games operate. Currently, we're using Margaret Weiss's Cortex, and I think it's a great system. It's super modern. It has all those nice little things that D&D should incorporate. But they're not going to, of course, because they're just better than you. But we've seen the death of an icon here, and I'm kind of curious what the future is. But keep in mind, 4th edition absolutely killed D&D, and the only reason it came back was because of Matt Mercer and his guys and Geek and Sundry and those guys. That's the only reason it came back, was because of their activities. So this, sometime in the future we could see D&D raise its head again, but they're going to need a completely different management and go back to the the standards. The simple fact of the matter is, we don't need you policing us socially or telling us how to act. We can do wherever we want. It is a creative process. Go back to just making great content, you dicks, and modernize, for fuck's sake. Anyway, Ben, final comments.
Did you guys talk about Vince McMahon also?
What did Vince do
or
now?
not?
No.
Oh,
Uh,
we'll get to
oh,
Vince. Don't worry. We're gonna have to get to him
uh,
a different time. Chester's got to go.
uh,
But
oh yeah, I was about to say that's a whole nother conversation. That's wild and
yeah,
crazy.
boy, it
Yeah.
is.
Did
So
he have sex with someone again? Oh,
Well, yes, kind of.
no.
He fucked his
Well,
own
yeah,
daughter and
okay.
his son-in-law.
what did he do to Hunter?
He forced himself back onto the board and is now preparing to sell the company. It looks like he's already got buyers lined up in Saudi Arabia to take it private.
His
Sweet.
daughter quit, and
Yeah,
I'm
and his
willing to
daughter
bet
quit.
Hunter's. Yeah, his daughter
Yeah.
quit. I'm willing to bet Hunter's out soon as well. Right, you
Yeah.
know, and it's just as Hunter started turning the company around. Like it's been doing a lot
Yeah.
better since he took over creative control, and it's wild right now. It's absolutely wild.
So does that
Yeah.
mean
Chester,
our new?
literally the whole world went crazy
It
when he
did.
left.
So does that mean
Yeah.
we're going to get Mohammed El Seed, the headhunter? Is that what's going to happen?
It's something's gonna happen. I don't know.
I don't
mean,
know. Is it that
boy,
bad?
it's
Saudis owning WWE? I don't know.
Well,
They're
it's
big
gonna
fans
it's
of it.
gonna definitely not be woke, that's for sure. Well, it'll be a different kind of woke. Let's put it that
Woman-
way. It'll be a totally different way.
that'll be the end of the women's division if that
That's
happens.
true. Yeah, that's fair. That's
Don't
fair.
make me like the Saudis, Ben. Stop it.
Oh boy.
Alrighty.
Oh boy.
But yeah, okie dokie. We'll have to talk about that next time. However, I am back on normal schedule, so tomorrow we're off course. On Tuesday, we will be continuing with our new Umbral campaign using the Cortex system, our little X-Files meets Supernatural. Come back for that, and of course, we will also have Drawn and Quartered Ultimate Edition on the Thursday. So beyond that, thank you all very much. It's a new year and lots of fun coming, I am sure. Thundero, take us out of here, man.
Very simple one. If you really want to succeed at anything, no matter what it is, you have to get your head right first. And I wrote this recently. Forgive yourself first and constantly, then you succeed, truly succeed, because success is not the destination, it's the byproduct. Success is a byproduct of consistency. And you will never be consistent if you do not like yourself.
Namaste. It's true. You stop looking for a girl, one shows up.
Yep.
Later.